Chapter 539. Suspicions. If I say no, then no. If you continue to be obstinate, I will. Who? How could Dongfang Ji allow Lu Wei to do as she pleased? With Lu Wei's Xiantian cultivation, she probably wouldn't even be able to enter Snow Domain Pavilion's main entrance, let alone save her parents. However, before Dongfang Ji could finish a sentence, he heard knocking on the door. Dean Dongfang, it's me, Yan Hui. A familiar voice came from outside the door. What's the matter? Dongfang Ji was a little puzzled. He had already ordered that without his permission, no one was allowed to approach his residence. Where did Yan Hui get the guts to actually dare to disobey him? Ningyu is back. Outside the door, Yan Hui said respectfully he wants to see Lu Wei. He's back. Dongfang Ji frowned and glanced at Lu Wei. Then he said in a clear voice, let him in. Dean Dongfang, Ningyu wants me to bring Lu Wei over, Yan Hui said while gritting his teeth. What? Dongfang Ji's mouth was slightly agape. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Ning, you had only left Danwu College for a short period of time, and he had already become so arrogant? He had to kill Ning Yu's arrogance. Otherwise, he would only be cannon fodder in the 100 Academy tournament. Dean Dongfang, Ningyu was invited to the Danwu pool by the Xianming elders the moment he entered Danwu College. Yan Hui hurriedly said, not daring to be negligent. Recalling the scene back then, Yan Hui was also confused. At that time, he was just about to leave Danwu College. Who would have thought that he would bump into Ningyu at the entrance? Just when he wanted to greet Ningyu, the Xianming elders suddenly appeared. Without any explanation, they held Ningyu on both sides, saying that they wanted to bring Ningyu to the Danwu pool. Ningyu tried his best to buy some time. He instructed him to invite Lu Wei to the Danwu pool, as he had something important to tell Lu Wei. As a matter of fact, Yan Hui's own matters had also fallen behind, and he hurriedly ran to Dongfang Ji's place. Danwu Pond again. Dongfang Ji's heart tightened for no reason. Then he said without batting an eyelid, Lu Wei is here. Whether she wants to go to the Danwu pool or not, it's not up to me. Creak. Dongfang Ji opened the door and walked out. He said to Yan Hui, whether she's willing to go to the Dan Marshall pool with you or not, it's all up to you. Thank you, Dean Dongfang. Yan Hui revealed a joyful expression and hurriedly entered the room. With Lu Wei's stubborn temper, I reckon what? Dongfang Ji was almost certain that at this critical juncture, Lu Wei definitely wouldn't go and meet Ningyu. However, before Dongfang Ji's voice faded, his mouth opened slightly, revealing a look of disbelief, because he saw that Lu Wei actually left the room with Yan Hui. Furthermore, Lu Wei's expression seemed to be very anxious. Until Yan Hui and Lu Wei disappeared from his sight, Dongfang Ji still felt very confused. Didn't Lu Wei know that after meeting Ningyu definitely wouldn't let her return to Snow Domain Pavilion? Yan Hui, Ningyu really has a way to save my parents. On the way to the Dan Marshall pool, Lu Wei urged Yan Hui while asking, you can't lie to me. You need to know the consequences of lying to me. When you see Ningyu later, you'll naturally understand. Actually, I don't know much either. Yan Hui felt a headache from Lu Wei's incessant questioning. To put it bluntly, he was only a messenger. Ning, you didn't tell him the specifics. Yan Hui definitely didn't believe that Ningyu had the ability to save Lu Wei's parents. His thoughts were similar to Dongfang Ji's. He thought that Ningyu called Lu Wei over to trap her and ensure that she wouldn't run around tomorrow. Dongfang Ji's residence wasn't too far from the Dan Marshall pool. Not long later, Yan Hui and Lu Wei stopped in front of a stone door. Little girl, stay. In front of the stone door, Elder Xian waved his hand at Yan Hui and said, you can scram now. Yan Hui was a little embarrassed, but he still chose to leave tactfully. After Yan Hui left, Elder Xian stared at Lu Swan for a while and said with a frown, you're at the Xiantian stage and your soul power is at the 2nd grade. There's nothing special about you. Why does Ningyu value you so much? As he spoke, Elder Xian shook his head. He grabbed Lu Wei's shoulder and dashed through the stone door. Senior, where are we going? Where's Ningyu? Elder Xian's speed was very fast, causing Lu Wei to be unable to speak clearly. You'll know in a while. Elder Xian didn't slow down, but increased his speed instead. After a while, Elder Xian stopped in front of a secret room. Old Man Ming, where's Ningyu? Looking at the familiar figure in front of the secret room, Elder Xian asked doubtfully, Didn't I tell you to wait for me here? Could it be that Ningyu entered the secret room? Just now, the dean sent a message for Ningyu to go in first. Elder Ming glanced at Lu Wei and said, But the dean personally instructed us to help Lu Wei increase her strength. He wants us to help her increase her strength? Elder Xian couldn't believe his ears. Who was the dean? He actually cared about a little girl at the Xiantian stage. Right, Ningyu asked me to pass a message to you. He wants you to focus on increasing your strength. He'll explain everything to you tomorrow morning. Elder Ming seemed to have thought of something and continued. Let's go. We'll go to the Dan pool to increase our soul power first. Elder Ming's tone was unquestionable. He directly left with Lu Wei. As for Elder Xian, although he was very doubtful, he didn't ask much. Instead, he followed closely behind Elder Ming and flew towards the Dan pool. Ningyu, you've done well. Not only did you find the real martial pool, you even obtained the golden box at the bottom of the pool. In a secret room, an illusory figure floated in midair and spoke in a clear voice. Below the illusory figure, Ningyu's expression was devoid of joy or sorrow. He said indifferently, Dean Wei, I have a question I'd like to ask you. Oh, the illusory figure was Wei Zongtian. At this moment, he raised his eyebrows and said, Let's hear it. Ningyu waved his sleeves, and the golden box immediately appeared in his hand. Waving the golden box in his hand, Ningyu asked doubtfully, Can you tell me what exactly is in this golden box? Looking at the golden box in Ningyu's hand, Wei Zongtian's eyes revealed a fervent expression. However, this fervent expression disappeared in a flash and was quickly concealed by him. Actually, even if you didn't ask, I would have told you. Wei Zongtian took a deep breath and explained, I once told you that Chu Tianming saved an injured heaven-devouring dog, which ultimately led to a fatal disaster. The item in the golden box is the remnant of that injured heaven-devouring dog. Chu Tianming asked me to find the remnant of the heaven-devouring dog. I'm just an illusory body and can't leave the Dan martial pool. That's why I asked you to find the real martial pool. Dean Wei, you still haven't told me what exactly is in the golden box. Ningyu waved the golden box in his hand again and said, In my opinion, why don't we open it here? Chapter 540. Chapter 540. Confrontation. Wait. Ningyu's sudden action startled Wei Zongtian. He quickly said, You can't break the box. If you really want to know what's inside, give it to me. I'll open it for you. Give you the box? Ningyu put away the golden box and said hesitantly, It's not impossible, but I have a condition. What condition? Wei Zongtian asked. I'm going to the martial Qi for an hour. I'll naturally give you the golden box after an hour, Ningyu said calmly. You're going to the martial Qi for an hour? Wei Zongtian frowned and fell into deep thought. A moment later, Wei Zongtian gritted his teeth and said, That's not a problem at all. The martial Qi is always open for you. There's no time to lose. I'm going to the martial Qi now. Ningyu did not want to waste time here and immediately urged. It had been more than 20 minutes since he left Snowfield Pavilion. If he could not find the energy equivalent to 80,000 Supreme Grade Yuan crystals, he would need 200,000 Supreme Grade Yuan crystals to control Old He. More than 200,000 Supreme Grade Yuan crystals would be enough to make Ningyu's heart ache for a long time. Let's go. Wei Zongtian was not an indecisive person. He immediately left the secret chamber with Ningyu. Since the martial qi was not in the secret chamber, Wei Zongtian could only rush to the martial qi with Ningyu. Soon, Ningyu and Wei Zongtian arrived at the secret chamber where the martial qi was. Plop! Ningyu did not hesitate and directly jumped into the martial qi. You're completely making a wedding dress for me. Looking at Ningyu gradually sinking to the bottom of the martial qi, the corner of Wei Zongtian's mouth curled up and he said with a sinister smile, "If I'm not wrong, when that little guy finishes absorbing the energy in the martial qi, he'll break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly." Ningyu did not know what Wei Zongtian was muttering. After jumping into the martial pool, Ningyu dove towards the bottom with all his might. Moreover, Ningyu communicated with Sun Jiangwen as he sank. The energy here is more abundant. Quickly absorb it and control Old Crane. Hearing Ningyu's words, Sun Jiangwen did not dare to be negligent. He quickly activated the array and began to absorb the energy from the pool. Walala! In an instant, a powerful suction force emerged from the storage ring, and it began to absorb the pure energy at the bottom of the martial pool without any restraint. Not bad at all. You're faster than I expected. Wei Zongtian floated above the martial pond and nodded his head in satisfaction when he saw the changes. Although the little guy's absorption speed might be slower in the later stages, it will need at most 2 hours to completely devour the energy in this martial pool. At that time, I can use it to raise the strength of this clone to the limit. Whoosh! At the bottom of the martial pool, while Sun Jiangwen was absorbing the pure energy, Ningyu took out the golden box with a swoosh. Although the golden box had been quiet for a long time, Ningyu still had lingering fears. Back in the ice mansion, the golden box had instantly devoured all the energy in the real martial pool. Ningyu could still remember it vividly. If the golden box went crazy and devoured all the energy in the martial pool, wouldn't Ningyu have no tears to cry? Woof woof! Just as Ningyu's thoughts were running wild, he heard a faint barking of a dog. Ningyu was slightly stunned when he heard the barking of a dog. Then, a shocked expression appeared on his face. This was the second time he heard the barking of a dog. The first time was in the ice mansion. At that time, the dog was very anxious and wanted Ningyu to save it. Although the dog's barking wasn't very urgent, it was still quite urgent. What do you want? Ningyu tried to ask in a low voice. Woof, woof, woof. However, the barking of the dog in Ningyu's ears did not change. Ningyu was speechless. It seemed that communicating with a dog was indeed very difficult. Ningyu was in a dilemma. The Dark Emperor was resting, and he did not understand dog language. How was he going to communicate with this little dog? Woof, woof. The barking of the dog continued, and it was getting more and more anxious. If you still want to devour energy, bark twice. If not, bark thrice. Ningyu rolled his eyes and thought of a countermeasure. Woof, woof. Then, 2 barks sounded in Ningyu's ears. Ah, so you still want to devour energy. Ningyu was a little speechless. Were the sky-devouring dogs all bottomless pits that devoured energy like eating? Not now. I'll let you know when it's possible. Under normal circumstances, Ningyu might let it devour the energy in the Wu Qi realm. However, not now. Sun Jiangwen was absorbing energy, and Ningyu did not dare to let it go. Woof. Perhaps it understood Ningyu's words, but after the puppy in the golden box barked once, it fell silent and no longer spoke. At the same time, in the storage ring beside the stone bed, Lu Durong looked at the endless stream of pure energy entering the storage ring. His mouth was slightly open, and a look of shock appeared on his face. These people are all following Ningyu's orders. Lu Durong's eyes slowly swept across the Hall Master of Alchemy and the others, and he murmured, "What kind of person is Ningyu? How can he control a yin-yang advanced stage martial artist and a 7th grade pinnacle alchemist?" Lu Durong's shock was not surprising. He had been in the storage ring for a long time, and elder he had not come after him. It was obvious that he had been taken away from Snow Domain Pavilion by Ningyu. Moreover, he had seen Lang Mian sitting on the ground in the distance. Pavilion Master Lu, Ningyu asked me to tell you that your daughter is fine now. While Lu Durong was still in shock, Feng Zi quietly came to his side and said, "When it's convenient, he will arrange for you to meet with your daughter." In fact, when Ningyu returned to Snow Domain Pavilion from outside the capital, he had told Feng Zi to comfort Lu Wei's father. No matter what, he could not let him do anything stupid. Ever since he hid from Spirit Fox No. 1 and entered the storage ring, Feng Zi had not left the storage ring. During this period, Lang Mian and Elder he appeared in the storage ring, all of which made Feng Zi feel extremely shocked. Feng Zi was almost numb from the shock, and he also re-evaluated Ningyu's strength. After the re-evaluation, Feng Zi found that the gap between him and Ningyu was getting bigger and bigger, to the point where it was immeasurable. Although the gap between him and Ningyu was getting bigger and bigger, Feng Zi was not discouraged because of this. Instead, he was more excited. Perhaps as Ningyu's strength improved, he might be able to help him. Time passed by minute, second by second, and Sun Jiangwen was also rapidly absorbing the energy in the martial pool. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. "It's done." When Ningyu heard Sun Jiangwen's voice in his mind, a look of excitement appeared between his brows. After 2 hours of hard work, Sun Jiangwen finally lived up to his expectations and completely controlled Elder He. Although Elder He's sea of consciousness had been destroyed, the secrets of the imperial family that he knew were still very helpful to Ningyu. After taking a deep breath, Ningyu said to Sun Jiangwen, Chapter 541. Chapter 541. Revealing his true colors understood. Sun Jiangwen responded to Ningyu's words and did not say anything else. He devoted himself to interrogating Elder Crane. After following Ningyu for so long, Sun Jiangwen had basically figured out Ningyu's temper. In short, he had to complete whatever Ningyu asked him to do. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. Sun Jiangwen knew very well that if he had not set up 2 formations in the storage ring, Ningyu would have gotten rid of him a long time ago. Therefore, Sun Jiangwen did not dare to delay and tried his best to interrogate Elder Crane as soon as possible. Swoosh! After Elder Crane's matters were settled, Ningyu shook his wrist and took out the golden box again. Woof woof! The golden box barked urgently as if it was trying to break free from Ningyu's grasp. Hee hee, you can devour the energy inside now. Devour as much as you want. F***CK. Ningyu smiled and threw the golden box in his hand. However, as soon as Ningyu threw the golden box out, his eyes widened and his face filled with shock. Whoosh! A powerful suction force suddenly erupted from the golden box and devoured 1/10 of the energy in the pool in an instant. This speed of devouring shocked Ningyu. However, compared to the speed at which the golden box devoured energy in Frost Manor, the speed at which it was devouring energy now was still acceptable to Ningyu. It was not too ridiculous. Moreover, the golden box devoured the energy faster in the beginning, but as time passed, the speed became slower and slower. At this speed, it would probably take half an hour to completely devour the energy in the pool. Half an hour? Huh! Ningyu frowned slightly and unleashed his peak 5th grade soul power, paying close attention to any sudden changes. To put it bluntly, Ningyu was on guard against Wei Zongtian. Wei Zongtian clearly knew that the golden box contained a young heaven-devouring dog, but he did not say anything. He probably had some ulterior motives. Before the young heaven-devouring dog rushed out of the golden box, Ningyu would not allow Wei Zongtian to do anything out of line. Therefore, Ningyu took on the responsibility of protecting them. Half an hour wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. At the very least for the golden box, it had completed its entire transformation in half an hour. Every 5 minutes, one of the keys on the golden box would be broken by the powerful energy. Ka 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 ka. Half an hour later, the 6 keys around the golden box were all blasted away by the powerful energy. Crack! The moment the 6 key chains were broken, the golden box exploded in front of Ning Yu's horrified eyes. Xiao! Soon after, a white figure dashed out and charged towards Ning Yu. Are you sure it's a heaven-devouring dog? Looking at the white figure that was charging towards him, Ning Yu opened his mouth slightly, his face full of confusion. The white figure was very small, about the size of the Dark Emperor's head. Moreover, its entire body was white, without a single strand of black fur. What shocked Ning Yu the most was that the white little fellow did not have any essence fluctuations. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a heaven-devouring dog. Its aura is similar to the Dark Emperor's. It should be a heaven-devouring dog. Oh no! Although the white little fellow did not have any essence fluctuations, the aura it emitted was more familiar to Ning Yu. It was not much different from the Dark Emperor's. However, before Ning Yu could finish his sentence, his expression changed drastically. He hurriedly turned into a shadow and blocked in front of the white little fellow. Buzz! Just as Ning Yu blocked in front of the white little fellow, a cold light tore through the void, blasting towards his chest. Humph! Ning Yu snorted coldly and grabbed at the void with his right hand. Immediately, the red demon's sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, Ning Yu slashed out with a sword radiance, which collided with the cold light in front of his chest. Pist pist! The collision of the cold light and the sword radiance did not cause much of a ripple. Both dissipated into the surroundings. Woof woof! Perhaps seeing that Ning Yu was being attacked, the white little fellow barked and wanted to charge out. Wait! Ning Yu whispered to the white little fellow. Then, holding the red demon's sword, he charged out of the martial pool and floated in the air, facing Wei Zongtian. As for the white little fellow, it stood on Ning Yu's shoulder and glared at Wei Zongtian. Dean Wei! Ning Yu tried his best to calm himself down and said in a low voice, What do you mean by doing this? Nothing much. Wei Zongtian did not hide the burning desire in his eyes as he smiled faintly. You said that you would give me the golden box after staying in the martial pool for an hour. Now that you've been in the martial pool for 3 to 4 hours, it's time to give me the golden box, right? Old fox, you sure know how to change the subject. Ning Yu despised Wei Zongtian deeply. He thought to himself that the latter was very quick to change the subject. After sorting out his thoughts, Ning Yu's lips curled up and he smiled as well. Dean Wei, I did say that I would give you the golden box, but now it's completely shattered. If you want, I can piece it back together. As he spoke, Ning Yu pointed at the floating wood chips on the surface of the martial pool and said, It's not easy to piece them back together. How about this? Give me 3 days. 3 days later, I'll come back here again and return you a complete golden box. Ning Yu could clearly see the corners of Wei Zongtian's mouth twitch a few times after hearing his words. Ning Yu did not mind. After all, Wei Zongtian only wanted the golden box and did not want the contents inside. I can piece the golden box back together myself. Right now, I'm interested in the little fellow on your shoulder. Wei Zongtian's expression completely darkened as he said coldly, as a student of Danwu College, You don't even listen to me, the dean's words. It's not that I don't want to listen to you, but you haven't answered me. Why did you attack me? Ning Yu shrugged and said indifferently, Good, very good, very good. Wei Zongtian was practically gnashing his teeth as he said, Since you refuse to come to your senses, I'll teach you a lesson. The moment the word you fell, Wei Zongtian's figure gradually became illusory. Very quickly he disappeared. Not good. Seeing Wei Zongtian disappear, Ning Yu's heart trembled and he immediately retreated. Whoosh! However, the speed at which Ning Yu retreated was clearly slower than the speed at which Wei Zongtian tore through space. Ning Yu had only taken 3 steps back when Wei Zongtian appeared beside him. Following that, Wei Zongtian punched, aiming for Ning Yu's heart. Ning Yu was greatly startled. This move from Wei Zongtian was actually intending to kill him. Damn it! At the crucial moment, Ning Yu cursed to himself. He quickly gathered all the essence in his sea of consciousness around his wrist, clashing with Wei Zongtian's fist. Kacha! Chapter 542. 50% Strength. As the dean, you attacked a student in public. Aren't you afraid that the upper echelons of Danu College will find out? Ningyu rubbed his sore right hand and said coldly to Wei Zongtian, "If I make this matter public, I believe it will affect your reputation greatly." Reputation? Haha, you're thinking too much. Wei Zongtian laughed sinisterly. I've already sealed this place. Even if I kill you here, no one will know. At this point, Wei Zongtian paused for a moment before continuing. Before you came in, I've already told the Xianming elders that I'm going to give you a great opportunity. If you can endure it, you will improve by leaps and bounds in the future. If you can't, you will vanish into thin air. In short, if you die in the martial pool, the Xianming elders will only say that you are not strong enough. You can't blame others. It seems like you've already arranged everything. Ning Yu was not discouraged by Wei Zongtian's words. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, "However, there's one thing you didn't think of." "Oh, what did I not think of?" Wei Zongtian raised his eyebrows and stared at Ning Yu with interest. "Come out." In the next moment, Ning Yu threw the storage ring into the air and shouted, "Swish, swish, swish." As Ning Yu spoke, 3 figures rushed out of the storage ring and landed steadily in front of Ning Yu. Hiss! Wei Zongtian could not help but gasp when he felt the powerful primal chi waves from the 3 figures in front of Ning Yu. 2 peak late-stage yin-yang realm and 1 peak mid-stage yin-yang realm. Furthermore, that peak mid-stage yin-yang realm martial artist had a pair of frightening evil eyes. With such a luxurious lineup, it was no wonder that Ning Yu was so confident. "Do you think you can contend against me with just them?" Although Wei Zongtian was extremely shocked, his expression did not change at all. He was still as calm as an ancient well. "In this place, I am the absolute ruler." As Wei Zongtian spoke, the essence in the secret room became berserk. In an instant, the berserk essence energy surged towards Wei Zongtian. Before Ning Yu's astonished gaze, Wei Zongtian opened his mouth wide and swallowed all the surrounding essence into his stomach. Buzz! When the essence entered his stomach, Wei Zongtian's aura soared like a rocket. Intermediate yin-yang realm. Late yin-yang realm. Peak late yin-yang realm. Bang! Next, a muffled sound rang out from Wei Zongtian's body. Wei Zongtian's aura broke through from the peak late-stage yin-yang realm to the peak yin-yang realm. An illusory figure actually possesses the aura of peak yin-yang realm. The powerful aura radiating from Wei Zongtian caused Ning Yu's heart to sink to the bottom. Even the illusory figure had the aura of a peak yin-yang realm expert. From this, it could be seen how powerful Wei Zongtian's main body was. At the very least, his cultivation was at the half-step manifestation realm. There was even a high possibility that he had reached the creation realm. "Before I die, I'll let you know why you're dying." Wei Zongtian cracked his neck and said to Ning Yu, "Actually, I noticed you the first time you came to Wu Qi. To be more precise, I noticed that black sky-devouring dog. However, its bloodline is not as good as the sky-devouring dog on your shoulder. That's why I asked you to search for the real Wu Qi and bring the little white guy here. A large portion of the Dan Wu Academy's secrets that I told you previously were fake. My real body and Chu Tianming's were trapped in the demonic dragon ruins and were unable to leave. Thus, Chu Tianming and I thought of this method. We used a secret technique to send my clone out of the demonic dragon ruins. Then, we thought of a way to raise the strength of this clone to the half-step manifestation realm before returning to rescue our main body. Originally, I was worried that devouring the little white guy on your shoulder would not allow me to advance to the half-step manifestation realm. Now, it seems that I was overthinking. The corners of Chu Tianming's mouth curled up. He stared at the alchemist hall master and the others and said with a smile, "With these warriors, I can even try to break through to the real manifestation realm. You're thinking too much. Unless your main body's strength reaches the mid-stage manifestation realm, it is impossible for this clone of yours to advance to the manifestation realm," Ningyu said in a deep voice. "Looks like today is destined to be a fierce battle. Ha ha ha." Wei Zongtian laughed maniacally at the sky. Then he said sinisterly, "Fierce battle? With just you small fries?" As he laughed maniacally, Wei Zongtian's figure flashed and appeared in front of Lung Mian in the blink of an eye. Wei Zongtian threw a punch. Under Lung Mian's horrified gaze, his fist hit Lung Mian's chest. Bang! Lung Mian did not expect Wei Zongtian to be so fast. In a moment of carelessness, he was hit by Wei Zongtian's fist and was sent flying. Uft! Lung Mian only stopped when his body hit the wall of the secret chamber. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his aura became slightly weak. It was clear that Lung Mian was severely injured. His strength had dropped by 60%. Ningyu, hand over the little white fellow on your shoulder. On account that you are a student of Danwu College, I can erase your memory and let you leave. After succeeding in his attack, Wei Zongtian did not continue attacking. Instead, he said, "How about it? Think about it. I have already been extremely benevolent to you." "Is that so?" Seeing Wei Zongtian stop, Ningyu laughed instead. His laughter was somewhat unbridled. "That attack just now should have exhausted 50% of your essence, right?" The corners of Ningyu's mouth curled up as he said, "If I did not guess wrongly, you should be doing your best to recover right now." "You." Hearing Ningyu's words, Wei Zongtian's expression changed drastically. This was because Ningyu was right. That attack just now had indeed used 50% of his strength. Right now, his situation was very bad. It was impossible for him to recover to his peak state without 10 minutes. "Ningyu, I have to admit that your eyes are very sharp. If not for the situation, I would really want to take you in as my disciple." Wei Zongtian took a deep breath and calmed down instead. However, Wei Zongtian's tone changed as he said coldly, "Even if I only have 50% of my strength left, killing the 2 cultivators beside you is still a piece of cake. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue with your big words?" Ningyu's eyes turned cold. Then he said to the alchemist hall master and the others, "Take down Wei Zongtian." Wait. Before the alchemist hall master and Evil Eye made a move, Wei Zongtian extended his right hand and said sinisterly, "If you do not want Lu Wei to be killed, you can choose to attack me. You are threatening me." Ningyu's expression turned completely cold. "Actually, it is not really a threat," Wei Zongtian said indifferently. "I already told the Xianming 2 elders that if they do not see me tomorrow morning, then there is no need for Lu Wei to exist." Ka-ka. Chapter 543. Surprise! This thought had just appeared in Ningyu's mind when it took root. It grew stronger and stronger, and he could not get rid of it. Woof! Woof! The little white creature on Ningyu's shoulder sensed Ningyu's rage. It leaped up and hovered in the air, barking at Wei Zongtian while barking. "Ha! Bark then. If you don't, you might not get another chance." Hearing the little white creature's barking, Wei Zongtian smiled sinisterly. "If time permits, I really want to raise you and devour you after you have grown a little. Unfortunately, I do not have much time left. If I do not return to the demonic dragon ruins soon, my main body will be exhausted. Wei Zongtian, no matter how calculative you are, you might have missed something." Ningyu said in a deep voice, If Xianming Patriarch and Xianming Patriarch do not see you tomorrow morning, they will kill Lu Swan. If I go and save Lu Swan now, there won't be so many problems. Ha ha ha. Wei Zongtian threw his head back and guffawed again. Do you think that you can kill this body of mine and leave the secret chamber in the remaining 2 hours? How laughably naive. Noisy. Ning Yu's tone turned cold. Then he said to Evil Eye, leave the secret chamber. You must rescue Lu Wei. Understood. Evil Eye did not dare to tarry. It quickly turned around and flew out of the secret chamber. Bang! However, just as Evil Eye reached the exit of the secret chamber, it seemed to touch a layer of restriction and bounced back. A barrier? Looking at the barrier that appeared at the exit of the secret chamber, Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat. Evil Eye, how long will it take for you to break the barrier? Ning Yu asked. Whoosh! 1 hour. Evil Eye's eyes gleamed coldly as it replied. Alchemist Hallmaster, help me stop Wei Zongtian. Ning Yu gritted his teeth, gripped the red demon sword in his hand, and took the initiative to attack Wei Zongtian. Seeing Ning Yu make his move, the Alchemist Hallmaster did not dare to slack off in the slightest. He immediately rushed out, following behind Ning Yu and fighting with Wei Zongtian. Rumble! Although Wei Zongtian's illusory body only had 50% of its strength left, its cultivation was still at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm. Unexpectedly, it was able to fight to a draw with Ning Yu and the others. To Ning Yu, being able to fight Wei Zongtian's illusory body to a draw was already a pleasant surprise. After all, the Evil Eye was doing its best to break the barrier. As long as the Evil Eye could save Lu Wei and return to the secret room to join forces with him, they would definitely have the upper hand. Actually, Ning Yu had also considered letting the demonic Eye deal with Wei Zongtian first before breaking the barrier. However, this idea was quickly rejected by Ning Yu. Unrealistic. There were still 2 hours before daybreak, and the Evil Eye needed an hour to break the barrier. Ning Yu did not dare to guarantee that the 3 of them could deal with Wei Zongtian within an hour. Therefore, to be on the safe side, Ning Yu decided that he and the Alchemist Hallmaster would hold Wei Zongtian back while the Evil Eye broke the barrier and saved Lu Wei first. Woof, woof. While Ning Yu fought with Wei Zongtian, the little white fellow floated left and right in the air, barking at Wei Zongtian nonstop. Humph, I will swallow you first. Wei Zongtian snorted coldly, then forcefully pushed back Ning Yu and the Alchemist Hallmaster as he flew towards the little white fellow. Swish! Wei Zongtian's speed was very fast, so fast that Ning Yu could not stop him. He could only shout, "Retreat quickly!" Buzz! In the next moment, Ning Yu discovered that his worries were completely unnecessary. When the little white fellow saw Wei Zongtian flying towards it, it actually made a face at Wei Zongtian. Then it tore through the void and entered. A young heaven-devouring dog can tear through the void. The sudden change not only stunned Ning Yu, but even Wei Zongtian was rooted to the spot. Wei Zongtian knew that a mature heaven-devouring dog could tear through the void, but he never expected that a young heaven-devouring dog could also tear through the void. A good chance. Seeing that Wei Zongtian was stunned, Ning Yu was delighted. He immediately channeled the essence in his sea of consciousness into the red demon sword. In order not to miss this opportunity, Ning Yu even wrapped his blue spirit fire and soul power around the red demon sword. Go! As Ning Yu shouted, the red demon sword left his hand. Crack! However, the moment the red demon sword left Ning Yu's hand, it tore through the void and entered. Not good. It's a king-grade flying sword. Only when the red demon's sword entered the void did Wei Zongtian recover from his shock. He hurriedly retreated. Although Wei Zongtian's retreating speed was fast enough, he was still half a beat slower than the red demon's sword. Pooh! In the next instant, the red demon's sword appeared in the void beside Wei Zongtian, piercing Wei Zongtian's left arm. Arg! Wei Zongtian screamed like a pig being slaughtered. He raised his right hand and forcefully chopped off his left arm. Hiss! Wei Zongtian's decisiveness shocked Ningyu, but that was all. Ningyu would definitely not miss such a good opportunity. With his left arm chopped off, Wei Zongtian's strength would drop by at least 30%. In other words, Wei Zongtian's current strength was only equivalent to 20% of his peak. At his peak, Wei Zongtian's illusory body had the strength of a peak yin-yang realm expert. Now he only had 20% of his strength left. The alchemist Hall Master and Ning Yu joined forces and naturally defeated him easily. Ningyu, I've changed my mind. Let me go, and I promise not to devour that little white fellow anymore. Moreover, I'll let you leave this place. After being defeated, Wei Zongtian seemed to have changed into a different person. He said, "No matter what, I'm still the first dean of Dongwu College. Just treat it as if nothing happened." "Dean Wei, can I ask you a question?" Ning Yu first gave the alchemist hall master a look, indicating for him to help demonic eye break the barrier. Then he looked at Wei Zongtian. "What question?" Wei Zongtian asked doubtfully. "Do I look like a fool to you?" Ning Yu said. "No," Wei Zongtian said without even thinking. "Oh, since I don't look like a fool, then I'm sorry, but there's no need for you to stay." Ning Yu nodded. Then, grasping the red demon sword, he charged at Wei Zongtian. "Ning Yu, you can't!" Wei Zongtian shouted crazily when he saw Ning Yu charging at him. However, before he could finish his sentence, he stopped abruptly. His figure gradually became illusory. "Ning Yu, the red demon sword has devoured Wei Zongtian's illusory body. It's already showing signs of recovering to its peak state. Quickly find me a quiet place. I want to break through." The red demon sword's voice rang out in Ning Yu's ear. Hearing this, Ning Yu was first stunned. Then he revealed a look of wild joy. The red demon sword was currently a peak king rank flying sword. If it could break through, wouldn't it advance to the royal rank? Chapter 544. Help a quiet place, huh? Ningyu rolled his eyes and said to Evil Eye, "How much longer will it take to break the barrier?" Soon. I will need at most 10 minutes to break the barrier." Evil Eye replied as it worked hard to break the barrier. After Wei Zongtian's illusory body died in battle, this barrier has obviously weakened a lot. If Lung Mian and the rest help, I can break the barrier in 3 minutes. Then what are you waiting for? Ningyu said in a deep voice. Lung Mian, alchemist hall master, quickly go and help Evil Eye. Understood. The alchemist hall master and Lung Mian did not dare to delay. They hurried to Evil Eye's side and worked together to break the barrier. "Red Devil, how confident are you this time?" Ningyu tried his best to calm himself down and said, "Also, what do you need? I will prepare it for you." The Red Devil sword's advancement to the monarch stage was very important. Ningyu would not allow any mistakes. "Essence crystals, a huge amount of essence crystals. Give me as many as you have." Red Devil did not stand on ceremony with Ningyu and said directly, "A conservative estimate is at least 200,000 supreme essence crystals." Ningyu was a little dumbfounded. He had gone through a lot of trouble to obtain the 80,000 supreme essence crystals that Sun Jiangwen needed. Where could he find 200,000 supreme essence crystals now? The energy in the martial pool had been devoured by the little white fellow. The martial pool was now an empty shell, other than the clear pool water. There was not even a strand of hair left. 200,000 supreme essence crystals. Even if he went to snatch it now, it would be too late. You have 3 days. You just have to get the essence crystals within 3 days. Perhaps seeing Ningyu's predicament, Red Devil continued. The Red Devil sword has absorbed Wei Zongtian's illusory body and has sufficient energy. The most important thing now is to find a quiet place. Fortunately, Ningyu heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, He had 3 days to find Supreme Essence crystals. Otherwise, he would have wasted such a good opportunity. Can I use my storage ring? Although there were still 3 days left, the quiet place made things difficult for Ningyu. He couldn't possibly leave Red Fiend here, right? It's possible, but the Red Devil Sword will cause a magic treasure tribulation when it advances to the monarch rank. At that time, you'll have to find another place. The Red Devil pondered deeply for a moment before he said, I'm afraid my spatial ring won't be able to endure the tribulation of a monarch rank magic treasure. Enter the ring first. As for a quiet place, I'll look for it after we leave the Danwu pool. Ningyu said. Whoosh! The red demon didn't stand on ceremony with Ningyu. It immediately fused with the red demon's sword and transformed into an afterimage before entering the storage ring. Crack! At this moment, the evil eye sent a report of victory. The barrier at the exit of the secret room was destroyed by the combined efforts of the evil eye and the alchemist hallmaster. You guys go into the storage ring as well. I'm going to find Elder Xianming. The instant the barrier was broken, Ningyu rose from the ground and rushed out of the secret room. The Elder Xianming were only at the initial stage of the Yin-Yang realm. With Ningyu's current strength, he naturally didn't need the evil eye's help. Moreover, the Elder Xianming guarded the Danwu pool all year round. Ning, you didn't want to kill them. He only needed to save Lu Wei and seal their mouths. The evil eye and the alchemist hallmaster's appearance would only make things worse. Whoosh! After leaving the secret room, Ningyu didn't stop at all. He immediately unleashed his perception and followed the Elder Xianming's aura. Old man Xian, why do you think the old dean is so concerned about Ningyu? In the secret room where Dan Qi was, 2 old men were conversing. One of them looked at the girl floating on the surface of the pool and said in confusion, not only did he allow Ningyu to enter the martial pool unconditionally, he even treated his little girlfriend so well and made an exception to let him enter the Dan Qi to cultivate. Old man Ming, why do you care so much? The old man called Old Man Xian mumbled, we just need to watch over Lu Wei. Due to our bestowments, she directly ascended to the great completion of the Khanate level. As for the power of the soul, she should be able to rise to the 3rd rank this time. It's not that I care too much. Elder Ming frowned. Have you forgotten what the old dean said to us? I'm going to gift Ningyu a great fortune. If we don't see Ningyu tomorrow morning, it means that he has most likely perished in the martial pool. I'm more optimistic about Ningyu. Didn't he come out of the martial pool the last 2 times? He'll definitely make it through this time. Elder Xian said, I wonder what level Ningyu's cultivation will have risen to when he emerges from the martial pool. Elder Xian's expression changed greatly before he'd even finished speaking. He stared fixedly at the entrance of the secret room and unleashed all of his aura. Elder Ming didn't remain idle either. He shot to his feet with a swoosh and looked warily at the entrance. Seniors, I bear no ill will. Ningyu took a deep breath and slowly walked into the secret room. Ningyu had heard the conversation between the Xianming elders loud and clear. Ningyu had been worried that the Xianming elders would know something they shouldn't, but now it looked like he'd been overthinking things. What Wei Zongtian said about Lu Swan must have been a lie. He was trying to stall for time. Since the Xianming elders didn't know about Wei Zongtian's scheme, there was no need for Ningyu to make a move against them. He only needed to take Lu Wei away and tell them that Wei Zongtian had left. Ningyu! The Xianming elders widened their eyes in surprise when they saw the familiar figure in front of them. Didn't the dean say that he'd give Ningyu a great opportunity? Why didn't Ningyu's cultivation change much? Ningyu, where's the dean? Why didn't he come out with you? Elder Xian asked doubtfully. The dean has left. Ningyu sighed softly and shook his head. Just now, the dean seemed to have received some news and suddenly tore through the void and left the martial pool. As for where he went, I don't know either. What? The dean has left? The Xianming elders flew into a rage and jumped up when they heard Ningyu's words. They'd just touched the threshold of the mid-stage Yin-Yang realm, and the dean had left? Before the dean left, he instructed us not to tell anyone about what happened here. After pondering for a moment, Ningyu said, "Before the dean left, he told me that the reason why the two of you haven't been able to advance to the mid-stage Yin-Yang realm isn't because you don't have enough energy, but because your state of mind has been restricted." In order to completely dispel the Xianming elders' doubts, Ningyu felt that he should give them some pointers. Sometimes, it's not good to rely on external forces too much. Ningyu explained, "You've been relying on the dean too much, which is why you haven't been able to advance to the mid-stage Yin-Yang realm." The Xianming elders fell into deep thought when they heard this. After a while, two powerful auras emerged from the Xianming elders' heads at the same time. Ningyu was stunned when he saw this. The Xianming elders had actually advanced from the early stage Yin-Yang realm to the mid-stage Yin-Yang realm because of what he said. Chapter 545. Gratitude after advancing to the Yin-Yang realm. The Xianming elders' auras became more vigorous. Every breath they took, energy flowed through their bodies, and their mental state underwent a huge change. "You've woken me up." Elder Xian took a deep breath, unable to conceal the excitement in his eyes. "Yeah, if not for the dean's concern for us, we would have needed at least another year or two to reach the Yin-Yang realm," Elder Ming said gratefully. "It's all thanks to the dean that I was able to reach the Yin-Yang realm this time. I've decided to stay in the Dan Wu pool for the next 2 years and won't go anywhere else." Elder Xian's tone was firm, as if Wei Zongtian was his second parent. Ningyu was speechless. He was the one who gave them advice, all right? In the end, Wei Zongtian took all the benefits. But that was fine. This way, the Xianming elders wouldn't be so suspicious anymore. "Ningyu, no matter what, you've contributed this time. You can come to the Dan Wu pool to cultivate any time in the future." The Xianming elders still had some conscience. They didn't forget about Ningyu. "Apart from you, all your friends and relatives can enter the Dan Wu pool to cultivate unconditionally." At this point, Elder Xian felt it was too much, so he added, "Of course, your friends can only enter the Dan Wu pool for an hour every month. They won't have the same treatment as you." "Thank you, seniors." But Ningyu first thanked the Xianming elders, then said hesitantly, "There might be some problems with the Dan Wu pool." "What problems?" "When the dean left, he accidentally absorbed all the energy in the Dan Wu pool," Ningyu said carefully. "I thought it was something serious. It's just a small matter." At first, Ningyu was worried that the Xianming elders would go berserk. Who would have thought that they wouldn't take it seriously? This was especially so for Elder Xian. He smiled and said, "Let me put this way. The energy in the Martial Reservoir was only temporarily sucked dry. When you come back in 3 days, you'll realize that everything has returned to normal. The energy in the Martial Reservoir hasn't decreased at all." This was the first time Ningyu had heard of such a thing. For a moment, Ningyu's mind became active. Upgrading the Red Demon Sword to the Emperor stage required 200,000 pieces of supreme-grade origin crystals. Why not return to the martial pool 3 days later and absorb all the energy inside? "Ningyu, stay here and look after your little girlfriend. We've just advanced to the middle stage of Yin-Yang realm and need to stabilize our cultivation, so we won't be accompanying you here." Just as Ningyu was letting his imagination run wild, the words of the Xianming elders echoed in his ears. Whoosh! Whoosh! Without waiting for Ningyu's reply, the Xianming elders hastily flashed out of the secret room and disappeared. After the Xianming elders left, Ningyu sorted out his thoughts and walked to the side of the pill pool. Lu Wei floated on the surface of the elixir pool. The pool water only reached her ankles. Her cultivation has reached the Khanate Great Perfection, and the strength of her soul power has reached the peak of Grade 2. She's only 1 step away from advancing to Grade 3. Feeling the aura emanating from Lu Wei, Ningyu nodded in satisfaction. Ning, you clearly remembered that the last time he saw Lu Wei, her cultivation was only at the early stage of Khanate. Only a few hours had passed, and her cultivation had risen to the peak of Khanate. It seemed that the Xianming elders had helped a lot. At the very least, they had given Lu Wei enlightenment. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Lu Wei's cultivation to improve so much in such a short time. Although enlightenment can improve cultivation in a short time, it's more troublesome to stabilize it. After pondering for a while, Ningyu murmured, I have to find a chance to help her stabilize her cultivation. Then, Ningyu sat cross-legged and began to circulate the spiritual art to replenish the origin qi he had consumed. In his battle with Wei Zongtian, Ningyu had expended a great deal of energy. It was impossible for Lu Wei to raise her soul power to grade 3 in a short time, so Ningyu decided to use this time to restore her cultivation to peak condition. While Ningyu was slowly recovering, Lu Wei's soul power slowly rose on the surface of the elixir pool. Bam! 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. A muffled sound came from Lu Wei's body. Lu Wei opened her eyes, and her soul power poured out in full force. Early grade 3 soul power. Although Ningyu was doing his best to recover, he still paid attention to Lu Wei's condition. The moment Lu Wei's soul power broke through to grade 3, Ningyu shot to his feet with a whoosh, a look of pleasant surprise on his face. Ningyu, where are my parents? Lu Wei didn't even have time to be happy when she saw Ningyu standing in front of her. When she saw Ningyu, Lu Wei naturally wanted to ask about her parents. Haha, don't worry. I said I could save your parents, so I will definitely save them. Ningyu smiled faintly and said to Lu Wei, your parents are in the storage ring. Go reunite with them first. Swoosh! Before Ningyu could finish speaking, Lu Wei's figure flashed and she rushed toward Ningyu. Holy shit! Ningyu didn't dare tarry. He hurriedly tossed the storage ring into the air and opened it at the same time. A beam of light rushed out from the storage ring and enveloped Lu Wei, bringing Lu Wei into the storage ring. After Lu Wei entered the storage ring, Ningyu couldn't leave by himself and could only wait here. Yan Hui and Dongfang Ji knew that Lu Wei came to the Danwu pool. If Ningyu left by himself, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. Ningyu decided to wait for Lu Wei to come out before leaving the Danwu pool together. Swish! However, just when Ningyu wanted to sit down, Lu Wei rushed out from the storage ring. Ningyu, tell me the truth. Do you have a way to refine the revival pill? Lu Wei's face was filled with anxiety. Her first sentence was to ask about the revival pill. Ningyu scratched his head and said, I have a way. Sun Jiangwen was a peak 7th grade elixir master, and the alchemist hall master was an early stage 8th grade elixir master. With their help, in addition to his soul force being raised to the 6th grade, there was a way to refine it. Ningyu, I beg you, Lu Wei bit her lips. She wanted to beg Ningyu for help, but she hesitated. Through the conversation with her father, Lu Durong, she knew that her family was in decline and all their resources were in his hands. Now, only her parents were left. Why would Ningyu help her? Moreover, even if Ningyu was willing to help, the herbs needed to refine the revival pill were too many. At least, it would be difficult to gather them in a short period of time. Don't say anything. Your problem is my problem. Ningyu knew what Lu Wei was thinking. He waved his hand and said, back in Dragon Valley, if it wasn't for you guys, I probably wouldn't be alive now. Leave the matter of refining the revival pill to me, just to repay a favor. Chapter 546. Blocking the Way. Why don't we leave this place first? Seeing Lu Wei's disappointed expression, Ningyu felt his heart ache. Even a man might not be able to endure what happened to Lu Wei. It was hard to imagine how Lu Wei had survived this period of time. Let's go. Lu Wei took a deep breath and was about to walk out of the secret chamber. Woof woof. However, Lu Wei had only taken a few steps when the little white fellow appeared outside the secret chamber and barked twice. It was only now that Ningyu realized that he had not seen the little white fellow for a long time. He had only cared about saving Lu Wei and did not expect the little white fellow to not be following behind him. Furball? Seeing the little white fellow floating in the air, Lu Wei was slightly taken aback and exclaimed, "This is Danwu College's Danwu Pool. Why is Furball here?" Woof woof. Hearing how Lu Wei addressed him, the little white fellow was furious and barked at Lu Wei twice. Ahem, Lu Wei, let me introduce you. He is not Furball, but Tun, the small dog. Ningyu coughed twice and explained. Look at his appearance. He is clearly similar to Furball. How is he a dog? Lu Wei pointed at the little white fellow. Looking at the little white fellow floating in the air, Ningyu felt that Lu Wei was right. He indeed looked like a furball. However, Ningyu was a little suspicious. Back in the Danwu pool, the little white fellow did not look like Furball. Why did it have a bulging belly and look so lazy now? All right, from now on, you will be called Furball. Ningyu directly gave the little white fellow a name, Furball. Furball looked at Ningyu with disdain. He was clearly saying that his name was not Furball, but the great heaven-devouring dog. Furball, when you're with Lu Wei in the future, you have to protect her at all times, got it? If I see someone bullying Lu Wei and you don't help, I'll beat you up, Ningyu said solemnly. Woof woof. Furball barked twice before leaping onto Lu Wei's shoulder, baring his teeth at Ningyu. Ningyu was speechless. What an ingrate. How long had it been? And he had already been captured by Lu Wei. Ningyu, Furball is still young. I'll be responsible for protecting him. Lu Wei lovingly hugged Furball and said, You're not allowed to be so fierce to Furball in the future. Furball looked provocatively at Ningyu, his expression as if he had one. Little thing, do you think I can't deal with you? The corner of Ningyu's mouth rose slightly as he transmitted his voice to Furball. Don't even think about getting a single crystal from me in the future. Hearing Ningyu's words, Furball immediately became listless and struggled to leave Lu Wei's embrace. All right, we'll leave now. Lu Wei tightly hugged Furball and fiercely glared at Ningyu before walking out of the secret room. Ningyu rubbed his nose and followed Lu Wei out of the secret room. At first, Ningyu planned to let Furball enter his storage ring, but after seeing Furball, Ningyu changed his mind. This was because Furball had actually completely concealed its aura. Even with his peak 5th grade soul force, he couldn't find anything special about Furball. After being in contact with the Dark Emperor for so long, Ningyu was already extremely sensitive to the aura of the heaven-devouring dog. Furball could even deceive him. It seemed like no one in the vast capital would be able to discover Furball's true identity. I was wondering who it was. So it's a core disciple of Danwu College. Just as Ningyu was pondering, he and Lu Wei had already arrived at the entrance of the Danwu pool. However, a light chuckle rang out beside his ear. Hearing this, Ningyu raised his head and looked over. In front of him, there was a man around 20 years old with a faint smile on his face. Yi Tian. Looking at the familiar figure in front of him, Ningyu frowned. He then pulled Lu Wei around Yi Tian and walked to the other side. Hee, why didn't you say hello before leaving? Are you looking down on me? Yi Tian said with a faint smile. However, before he finished speaking, he saw Ningyu walking into the distance without looking back. Seeing this, Yi Tian's expression turned completely cold. Stop right there. I want to challenge you, Yi Tian berated. In the alchemy competition last time, I lost to you because I was careless. This time, I won't be careless again. Although this was the entrance to the Danwu pool, there were still many Danwu College martial artists in the surroundings. When everyone heard Yi Tian's berating, they all looked over. There were even some martial artists who started discussing. Aren't those two Ningyu and Yi Tian? Who's the other girl? You don't even know her? The Snow Pavilion's young miss was sent to Dean Dongfang by Ningyu not long ago. Who cares who that girl is? Ever since he lost to Ningyu, Yi Tian has been in closed-door cultivation. This time, he wants to go to the Danwu pool to cultivate. Who would have thought that he would meet Ningyu? Hee, there's a good show to watch. I guess, Ning, you won't accept the challenge. A true martial artist said. What do you mean? The martial artist at the side was puzzled. Didn't you guys notice? Yi Tian's soul force has already reached the 5th grade. Hearing this, the surrounding martial artists all focused their attention on Yi Tian. Hiss! What they saw caused the surrounding cultivators to suck in a breath of cold air. Indeed, compared to the last time, Yi Tian's soul force had increased again, from the peak of the 4th grade to the early stage of the 5th grade. With this soul force, coupled with Yi Tian's alchemy level, it would be very difficult for Ningyu to win again. Ning, you didn't care about the crowd's discussion in the distance. At this time he stopped where he was, looked at Yi Tian with interest, and said, You want to challenge me? Yes, Yi Tian said in a deep voice. Not interested, and I don't have time. Ningyu shrugged and said indifferently. Saying this, Ningyu lifted his leg and was about to leave. Such a good opportunity. How could Yi Tian miss it? His figure flashed, firmly blocking Ningyu's path, and said with a sinister smile, You don't have time, or you don't dare to accept my challenge. Or you're afraid of losing in front of this person and losing face. Losing in front of a beauty is indeed very shameful. There's nothing wrong with you doing this. Yi Tian's eyes turned, and then he changed the topic and said with a smile, You can leave, but you have to return my square alchemy furnace and admit that you're not my opponent. No, you have to kneel down and admit your mistake. Whoosh! Yi Tian's words directly caused an uproar among the martial artists in the distance. Isn't Yi Tian too arrogant? It's fine if he wants Ningyu to admit defeat, but he actually wants him to kneel down. He's really too much. Too much? The current Yi Tian is qualified to do so. That's right, let me tell you something, but don't tell anyone else. Chapter 547. Ordinary Alchemy Furnace. What? Dan Chenzi is out? The surrounding martial artists were shocked. When Dan Chenzi was in closed-door training, it caused quite a commotion in the capital. After all, Dan Chenzi was an early-stage 8th-grade alchemist. Once he came out, it was very likely that he would advance to mid-stage 8th-grade alchemist. Didn't that mean that offending Yi Tian was equivalent to offending a mid-stage 8th-grade alchemist? That was a mid-stage 8th-grade alchemist. Not to mention that Ningyu was a core disciple of Danwu College. Even if Ningyu was the holy son of Danwu College, it would still be useless. That's right. The peak of true martial realm martial artist nodded and said, I heard that Dan Chenzi came out this time because he received an invitation from the president of the Alchemy Union to participate in the alchemy competition. Alchemy competition? Didn't they say it was postponed? Someone asked doubtfully. You're behind the times. The peak of true martial realm martial artist smiled and said, Just this morning, the president of the Alchemy Union suddenly announced that the alchemy competition will officially start tomorrow. Swoosh! The surrounding martial artists widened their eyes in surprise. The news from a peak of true martial realm martial artist was too heavy. The alchemy competition had been postponed again and again, and it was confirmed that it would officially start tomorrow. It was indeed a rare thing. The alchemy competition will start tomorrow anyway. I guess Yi Tian and Ning, you'll have a clear winner today. Someone's words drew the crowd's attention back to Ningyu and Yi Tian. With Yi Tian blocking his way, Ningyu simply stopped. Ning, you did not seem to care about Yi Tian's arrogance. Instead, he said indifferently, These two things may disappoint you. First, I've already sold the square alchemy furnace, so I can't return it to you. Second, you don't have the qualifications to kneel down and apologize to you. I don't have the qualifications. Yi Tian pointed at his own nose and said in a cold voice, Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? If you have the ability, let's compete again. We will compete in refining the true martial Dan. I have already prepared the herbs. With that, Yi Tian flicked his sleeve and a storage pouch appeared in his hand. There are a total of 2 sets of ingredients for refining the true martial pellet in here. We will decide the winner with 1 set of pellets. Yi Tian said gloomily as he waved the storage bag in his hand. Can I ask you a question? Ning Yu said hesitantly when he saw Yi Tian's determined expression. What problem? Yi Tian asked. My time is very precious. Why should I waste my time to compete with you in refining the true martial Dan? Ning Yu said in a clear voice. The surrounding martial artists were all paying attention to what was happening here. When Ning Yu said this, the surrounding martial artists burst into an uproar again. Why is Ning Yu so arrogant? That's right. Could it be that Ning Yu thinks he can beat Yi Tian? You have to know that Yi Tian is no longer the same as before. His alchemy level has reached the initial stage of grade 5. You don't say. I'm more optimistic about Ning Yu. You're optimistic about Ning Yu? Hee, to tell you the truth, Yi Tian is only 1 step away from becoming a middle stage, grade 5 alchemist. That's right. This time, Yi Tian and Ning Yu are competing in refining the true martial Dan. They are completely prepared. I heard that Yi Tian has received guidance from his master. Out of 10 furnaces of true martial Dan, he can refine 3 furnaces of supreme level pellets. Whoosh! This time the way the surrounding martial artists looked at Yi Tian changed. Out of 10 furnaces of true martial Dan, he could refine 3 furnaces of supreme level pellets. Even some grade 6 alchemists might not be able to refine 1 furnace of supreme level pellets in 10 furnaces. Yi Tian was only a grade 5 alchemist, yet he could achieve this. In the future, he might even reach the height of Dan Qinzi. The martial artists whose cultivation was at the peak of the Xiantian realm started to think about how to get close to Yi Tian and strive to buy a few supreme level pellets from him. After all, supreme level pellets were priceless. They could not be bought with crystals. Ning Yu, are you afraid? Are you afraid of losing to me? Are you afraid of losing face in front of a beauty? Are you afraid of... Yi Tian said coldly. Stop. Ning Yu directly interrupted Yi Tian and said, Just take it that I'm afraid, okay? If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Don't block my way. You. The more Ning Yu said like this, the angrier Yi Tian got. Ning Yu was clearly looking down on him. He was not truly afraid of him. This month, I can still enter the Danwu pool to cultivate for 2 hours. Let's bet on these 2 hours. Yi Tian took out a token from his pocket. It was the token to enter the Danwu pool. Sigh. Seeing the token in Yi Tian's hand, Ning Yu sighed lightly and said, Since you are so interested, there's no harm in playing with you. Although the Xianming 2 elders promised Ning Yu that he could enter the Danwu pool to cultivate unconditionally, and he could even bring his friends to enter the Danwu pool to cultivate, Ning Yu felt that it was not good to owe others favors. If he could win this token from Yi Tian's hands, it would be better for Lu Wei to have an excuse when she entered the Danwu pool to cultivate in the future. It would not attract too much attention. Humph! Take out your cauldron. Yi Tian snorted coldly. He took out a set of ingredients for refining the true martial pill and threw it to Ning Yu. Pa! Ning Yu caught the ingredients and said to the surrounding students, That who has a cauldron to lend me? Hearing Ning Yu's words, the surrounding martial artists were all dumbfounded. After all this time, Ning Yu did not even have cauldron. No wonder he was unwilling to agree to Yi Tian's request. It was just that due to Yi Tian's master's identity, no one dared to lend their cauldron to Ning Yu. I have a cauldron, but the quality is a little lower. Right at this moment, a voice resounded in the area. Ning Yu looked at the cauldron in Lu Wei's hand with black lines on his forehead. The cauldron was only the size of a palm and looked very ordinary. Uft! Seeing the cauldron in Lu Wei's hand, Yi Tian could not help but laugh out loud. After laughing, Yi Tian said, "Ning Yu, if you don't have a cauldron, beg me, and I can consider giving you one." This cauldron is clearly a street stall product. It's at most 10,000 high-grade essence crystals. If you use this cauldron to compete with me in refining the true martial pill, even if I win, it will be an unfair victory. No need. Ning Yu flatly rejected Yi Tian's good intentions. He took the cauldron in Lu Wei's hand and said indifferently, "I will use this cauldron to compete with you in refining the true martial pill." Ning Yu, is he stupid? Yeah, using this cauldron to compete with Yi Tian in alchemy. How can he win? That's right. This cauldron can only refine 3rd grade dawn at most. The true martial pill is a 4th grade dawn. It's impossible to refine it. That's right, not to mention Ning Yu. Even if Dan Chinzi came, he may not be able to use this cauldron to refine the true martial pill. You guys have overlooked one thing. While everyone was discussing, a late-stage true martial realm student said, "Not only does Ning Yu have to use this cauldron to refine the true martial pill, but he also has to refine a transcendent grade true martial pill to have a chance of defeating Yi Tian." Chapter 548. Chapter 548. Arrogance or confidence. Ha ha ha! Yi Tian looked up to the sky and laughed. "Ning Yu, you are still the same as before. Arrogant, and condescending. Since you want to die, don't blame me." Yi Tian waved his sleeve and a golden alchemy furnace appeared in his hand. Whoosh! Looking at the golden alchemy furnace in Yi Tian's hand, the surrounding students of Danwu College all opened their mouths in disbelief. A golden alchemy furnace. Ranked 28th on the Earth list. It's a golden alchemy furnace. Yi Tian came prepared. The golden alchemy furnace was used by Dan Chinzi when he was young. When did it fall into Yi Tian's hands? Didn't Dan Chinzi come out of seclusion some time ago? He must have given the alchemy furnace to Yi Tian at that time. With the alchemy furnace, Yi Tian has an 80% chance of refining a supreme, true martial pill. What does Ning Yu have to compete with him? The discussion of the crowd did not affect Ning Yu. It didn't matter if it was a golden alchemy furnace or a silver alchemy furnace. As long as it could refine pills, it was a good alchemy furnace. With such an amazing alchemy furnace, if he couldn't refine a supreme, true martial pill, what was the use of it? Ning Yu, don't say that I am bullying you. I will let you refine the true martial pill first. Holding the alchemy furnace, Yi Tian said proudly, "I will start in 5 minutes." No wonder. He is Dan Chinzi's last disciple. He is so slick. Exactly. Yi Tian let Ning Yu have 5 minutes. No one will say that he is taking advantage of Ning Yu. Yeah, he can divert everyone's attention to refining pills at the right time and make them ignore the difference between alchemy furnaces. Even if you give Ning Yu an hour, he won't be able to refine the true martial pill, let alone 5 minutes. The moment Yi Tian took out the alchemy furnace, many students had the same opinion. It was impossible for Ning Yu to refine the true martial Dan. It was impossible for him to defeat Yi Tian. Ning, you didn't care what everyone thought of him. Instead, he asked hesitantly, "Do you really want me to refine for 5 minutes first?" A gentleman keeps his word. Yi Tian raised his eyebrows and said in a clear voice, "Idiot." Ning Yu glanced at Yi Tian, then immediately threw the alchemy furnace in his hands above his head. At the same time, he poured his soul force into it. Buzz! Following the infusion of Ning Yu's soul force, the alchemy furnace gradually became bigger, and finally became the same size as a normal alchemy furnace. Voila! After the alchemy furnace became bigger, Ningyu threw all the herbs needed to refine the true martial Dan into the alchemy furnace. A blue flame appeared on the fingertips of his right hand and began to burn the bottom of the alchemy furnace. Ningyu dares to refine real martial Dan like this? Did you lose your mind? I guess he's just giving up. He knows that it's impossible for him to defeat Yi Tian, so he's using this method to concoct pills. Even if he fails, it'll look better. That must be it. Although Ningyu used this refining method the last time he was refining pills in the Danwu Academy, seeing Ningyu's crazy actions again, the surrounding students still revealed horrified expressions. After all, Ningyu's method of concoction was too unique. In such a big capital, he was the only one. Huh, you won't be so lucky this time. Seeing Ningyu's actions, Yi Tian snorted. In Yi Tian's opinion, the reason why Ningyu was able to refine the supreme grade, true martial Dan last time was completely because of luck. Compared to last time, not only did Ningyu's alchemy furnace quality was low, but he also needed to refine a supreme grade, true martial Dan to defeat him. Could Ningyu refine a supreme grade, true martial Dan? The answer was obviously no. By the way, Yi Tian, can I ask what counts as my victory? At this moment, Ningyu's voice rang in Yi Tian's ears. Does it count as my victory if I refine the true martial Dan before you, regardless of the quality? Hearing that, Yi Tian almost blurted out. However, before he could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. Originally, Yi Tian wanted to say of course, but when he thought of how abnormal Ningyu was, he pondered for a moment and said, as long as you can refine a supreme grade pill before me. No, as long as you can refine a supreme grade true martial pill before me, you win. With so many people watching, Yi Tian felt that it was somewhat unfair to let Ningyu refine a supreme grade true martial Dan. Therefore, he changed his tone and said, with my alchemy skills, I can definitely refine a supreme grade true martial Dan. I've already done my best for you. If you still can't win, it's because you're not capable enough. In that case, I really have to thank you. Ningyu said, don't thank me. You just need to return the square alchemy furnace to me and kneel down to apologize to me. Yi Tian laughed. It may be too early to say these words. It's not the last moment yet. I can't guarantee that I can refine a supreme grade true martial Dan before you. Ningyu shrugged. Originally, Ningyu wanted to refine a supreme grade true martial Dan. Fortunately, he asked Yi Tian so he could avoid the embarrassment of refining a supreme grade true martial Dan. Using such a low-quality alchemy furnace to refine a supreme grade true martial Dan, it was estimated that the top management of Danwu College would be shocked. Ning, you didn't want to be in the limelight, since refining a supreme grade true martial Dan before him would be considered as his victory. Ningyu temporarily changed his alchemy strategy. He lowered the heat and refined the true martial Dan unhurriedly. Ningyu's actions made the corners of the mouths of the surrounding martial artists twitch. The alchemy furnace's quality was already low, and he still didn't refine the Dan seriously? It would be strange if he could win. Humph! Arrogant, conceited, and condescending. I will make you cry later. Yi Tian was very displeased with Ningyu's behavior. He gave him 5 minutes, but he didn't know how to cherish it. Instead, he wasted it. This could no longer be regarded as arrogance. It was clearly looking down on him. Although refining a supreme grade true martial Dan is relatively slow, refining a supreme grade true martial Dan is relatively fast. Yi Tian was secretly calculating the time. After 5 minutes, I will start refining the highest grade true martial Dan. As long as I can refine the highest grade true martial Dan one step ahead of him, I can also kill his arrogance. At first, Yi Tian wanted to refine a supreme grade true martial Dan, but considering that refining a supreme grade true martial Dan might take a long time, He temporarily decided to refine a supreme grade, true martial Dan. Impact, face-slapping shock. These were the effects that Yi Tian wanted. Although refining a supreme grade true martial Dan would shock everyone more, it would take a long time. Yi Tian didn't want to wait any longer. He already couldn't wait to see Ning Yu's appearance when he was defeated. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Time flew by quickly. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. In the blink of an eye, 5 minutes had passed. Swish! Just after 5 minutes, Yi Tian threw the golden cauldron alchemy furnace above his head, grabbed a medicinal herb with his right hand, and was about to put it into the alchemy furnace. Chapter 549. Hairy Ball. Crack! A clear and melodious sound resounded in this area. Ning Yu slammed his palm heavily on the cauldron. The low-quality cauldron did not even last a second in Ning Yu's hand before it shattered. Whoosh! The shattering of the cauldron silenced the surrounding martial artists. Ha ha ha! After a short period of silence, bursts of laughter erupted from all around. Ning Yu is too good. He failed to refine the true martial pill and even shattered the cauldron. You can't blame Ning Yu. After all, that cauldron was too weak. How could it have withstood his scorching heat? Hee, this is going to be fun. Ning Yu failed to refine the true martial pill. I wonder if he will kneel down and apologize to Yi Tian. In front of so many people, Ning Yu won't go back on his words, will he? Hard to say. After all, kneeling down to Yi Tian in front of so many people is a disgrace to him. Ning Yu's face did not change in the slightest when he heard the discussions of the surrounding martial artists. It was as if the matter had nothing to do with him. On the contrary, Ning Yu moved his feet and walked forward. Stop! Yi Tian reprimanded him. Ning Yu, you have to accept your defeat. You lost. Hurry up and hand over the square alchemy furnace. Then kneel down and admit your mistake. I will consider this matter over and will not mention it again in the future. Ning Yu stopped in his tracks and said, I seem to have heard you say that as long as I can refine a supreme grade, true martial Dan before you, this battle will be considered my victory. I did say that. Yi Tian raised his eyebrows and said in disdain, but your cauldron is broken and you have no more ingredients. What are you going to use to refine the true martial pill? How are you going to compete with me? The cauldron is broken and the ingredients are gone. But that doesn't mean I can't refine the true martial pill. Ning Yu smiled and ignored Yi Tian. He turned around and walked away. Stop right there. Today, no matter what. What? Seeing that Ning Yu was ignoring him, Yi Tian's face instantly darkened. However, just as he was about to scold Ning Yu, his eyes widened and his face was filled with confusion. Ning Yu stopped in front of the largest pill furnace fragment and kicked it away. Voila! Just as Ning Yu kicked the fragments of the pill furnace away, the martial warriors in the area revealed extremely shocked expressions. Many martial artists stood rooted to the ground, speechless for a long time. True martial Dan. Supreme grade, true martial Dan. What was hidden under the fragments of the alchemical furnace was a top-grade, true martial Dan. Who would have thought that Ning Yu would actually refine the best grade true martial Dan? To them, this was a deep irony. Picking up the true martial pill on the ground, Ning Yu returned to Yi Tian and said indifferently, If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose. Hand over the token to enter the Danwu pool. Crack, crack. Looking at the pill in Ning Yu's hand, Yi Tian clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. His eyes revealed a hint of viciousness. However, this viciousness was quickly concealed by him. Other than Ning Yu, no one else noticed it. Hand over the pill and let me check. Yi Tian said coldly, As long as I can confirm that the pill in your hand is a top-grade true martial Dan, I will naturally hand over the token. If I find out that the pill in your hand is not a top-grade true martial Dan, not only will you kneel down, You will also have to kowtow to me a few times. I don't trust you, Ningyu said bluntly, not afraid of offending Yi Tian. You don't trust me? Yi Tian couldn't believe his ears at all. He said gloomily, I'm an early-stage, 5th-grade alchemist. Don't tell me I can't even differentiate a top-grade, true martial dan. That's hard to say. Ningyu shrugged and said, Humans make mistakes, dogs stumble. You might be the one who stumbles. Uft. When Ningyu's words fell into Lu Wei's ears, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. However, when she saw Yi Tian's livid face, Lu Wei quickly stopped laughing. Woof woof. Lu Wei stopped laughing, but Harry Ball, who was in her arms, laughed happily and didn't have any intention of stopping. Yi Tian was very angry. He was on the verge of exploding. Being laughed at by Lu Wei was fine, but now he was being laughed at by a dog. Not only his aunt couldn't tolerate it, no one could. If you laugh again, I will skin you alive, Yi Tian said fiercely. Xiao. Hearing that, Harry Ball was angry. What kind of cat or dog dared to say such harsh words to him? And Quan didn't put him in his eyes. Harry Ball's anger was much more powerful than Yi Tian's. He instantly broke free from Lu Wei's embrace and appeared in front of Yi Tian in the blink of an eye. Rip! Its front paw stretched out, and when Yi Tian was caught off guard, it ruthlessly tore off a large piece of Yi Tian's clothes. Then Harry Ball waved the spoils of war in its paw and looked at Yi Tian provocatively. I'm so angry, I'm so angry. Yi Tian was already on the verge of exploding. Now that Harry Ball had messed with him, he completely went berserk. After going berserk, Yi Tian unleashed his soul force at the beginning of 5th-grade soul force and pressed it down on Furball. Ningyu, hurry up and save Harry Ball. Lu Wei's soul force had increased to rank 3 soul force, so she was very sensitive to Yi Tian's soul force pressure. Don't panic. Harry Ball should be able to handle it. Ningyu didn't act immediately. In other words, Ningyu didn't think that Harry Ball would be injured. Harry Ball's current appearance was clearly disdainful of Yi Tian. Ningyu also wanted to see how abnormal Harry Ball, whose bloodline was said to be even thicker than Dark Emperor's, was. Woof woof. Being enveloped by Yi Tian's soul force, Harry Ball seemed to be enjoying it. It even made a face at Yi Tian. What is that, little white guy? Are you deaf? Didn't you hear it barking? That's right, it should be a dog. As for what rank it is, I don't know. It's definitely not a low rank. Yi Tian's soul force is at rank 5 soul force. A small dog that can remain unscathed under his soul force can't be a low-rank monster beast. Now, many students were very interested in Harry Ball. After all, a small dog that could face Yi Tian head-on was indeed very rare. This dog isn't simple. In the instant that soul force pressure pressed down on Harry Ball, Yi Tian felt that Harry Ball was extraordinary. Generally speaking, even a rank 5 martial artist with the same soul force as him might not be able to withstand his soul force pressure. For Harry Ball to be able to withstand his soul force pressure, it was at least a rank 5 monster beast. A rank 5 monster beast was equivalent to a human Yuan Dan realm martial artist. Because he cultivated his soul force all year round, Yi Tian's cultivation was only at the late stage of the true martial realm. If he really fought with Harry Ball here, the one who would lose in the end would definitely be Yi Tian. Ningyu, it's fine if you don't dare to let me inspect the elixir, but you actually let a dog come and cause trouble? Yi Tian's eyes turned as he quickly thought of a countermeasure. Chapter 550. The pill exploded, what? What Ningyu refined was not a supreme-grade, true martial pill, but a low-grade, true martial pill. Humph! I have said that it would be strange if Ningyu could refine a supreme-grade, true martial pill with such a low-quality furnace. I suspect that the true martial pill he refined was not even a low-grade one. Not even a low-grade one. That is impossible. Ning Yu refined a supreme grade true martial pill last time. There is no reason that he could not even refine a low grade true martial pill this time. Let's wait and see. Yes, now let's see if Ning Yu dares to let Yi Tian check the pill. Hearing Yi Tian's words, the surrounding martial artists began to discuss again. However, this time the focus of everyone's discussion had shifted from Harry Ball to the true martial pill. Ning Yu, are you guilty? The reaction of the surrounding martial artists gave Yi Tian a feeling that his plan had succeeded. He said coldly, now I suspect that what you refined was not a low-grade, true martial pill, but a fake. Wow. Yi Tian's words caused the originally quiet area to become noisy once again. Fake? Could it be that Ning Yu did not even refine a low-grade, true martial pill? It is hard to say. Ning Yu used a low-quality furnace. It is reasonable that he could not refine a low-grade, true martial pill. Maybe Ning Yu had prepared the pill a long time ago and took it out at the last moment to get away with it. Yes, you must check the pill. Yes, we must check the pill. In an instant, the surrounding martial artists sided with Yi Tian and shouted that they wanted to check the pill. Yi Tian looked at Ning Yu provocatively. He raised the corner of his mouth and said to himself, as long as you let me check, even if you refined a supreme grade, true martial pill, I have a way to change it to a low-grade one. This time, I am doomed to ruin your reputation. Ning Yu frowned slightly and said indifferently, it's not impossible to check the dawn, but you're just a 5th-grade primary alchemist, so you shouldn't be able to distinguish the difference between a top-grade true martial Dan and a low-grade true martial Dan. I can't tell. Yi Tian pointed at his own nose and laughed wildly. What a joke! I can refine the best quality true martial Dan as easy as taking something out of my pocket. You actually said that I can't tell the difference between them. Hee, the ignorant are truly fearless. Oh, if that's the case, I won't make things difficult for you. Ning Yu said unhurriedly, as long as you can refine a top-grade true martial Dan, you win. Voila! Ning Yu's words made the surrounding martial artists a little dumbfounded. Arrogant. One had to know that Yi Tian was an early 5th-grade alchemist, coupled with the golden cauldron furnace, not to mention the supreme grade, true martial Dan. Even the transcendent grade, true martial Dan could be refined. Has Ning Yu gone mad? Now I'm wondering how he became a core disciple of the Sacred Institute. That's right. Yi Tian can easily refine the supreme grade, true martial Dan. It doesn't make sense for Ning Yu to do so. Doesn't make sense? Haha, in my opinion, Ning Yu has already given up. What he's doing is nothing but delaying for time. If I'm not wrong, Ning Yu should be informing Din Dongfang, hoping that Din Dongfang can come and help him out. What the crowd didn't know was that while they were discussing, Dongfang Ji, who was behind a house not far away, was frowning deeply. In fact, when Ning Yu and Yi Tian began to compete in alchemy, Dongfang Ji had already come over. However, he wanted to see Ning Yu's alchemy level, so he didn't intervene. When Ning Yu refined the best quality true martial Dan, Dongfang Ji was very pleased and almost wanted to come forward to testify for Ning Yu. However, when he heard the crowd's words, he stopped and chose to wait and see. Now that he came forward at this time, the crowd would definitely think that he was partial to Ning Yu. What the hell is this kid doing? Does he really think that Yi Tian can't refine the best quality true martial Dan? Dongfang Ji was a little worried. Based on his understanding of Yi Tian, he knew that Yi Tian could easily refine the best quality true martial Dan. You're courting death. Yi Tian showed a touch of ruthlessness and said coldly, open your eyes and watch. Not only will I refine the true martial Dan, but the lowest quality will also be supreme. The moment his voice fell, Yi Tian flicked his wrist and threw the golden tripod alchemy furnace into the air. Then he grabbed a medicinal material with his left hand and threw it into the alchemy furnace. At the same time, a light purple flame appeared on the fingertips of his right hand. Purple Serene Fire. Purple Serene Fire is the 382nd flame on the exotic fire list. With the Purple Serene Fire and the strength of Yi Tian's early 5th grade soul force, I estimate that he can refine the best quality, true martial Dan in 10 minutes. 10 minutes? You are behind the times. In my opinion, Yi Tian will be able to refine a highest grade, true martial Dan within 5 minutes. Furthermore, it is extremely likely that he will break the limit of refining a highest grade, true martial Dan within the Sky Devil region's younger generation and refine a highest grade, true martial Dan within 3 minutes. It's impossible in 3 minutes, but in 5 minutes, Yi Tian should be able to refine the best quality, true martial Dan. You're all wrong. Yi Tian doesn't want to refine the best quality, true martial Dan. He wants to refine the supreme, true martial Dan. Swish! The last warrior's words turned everyone's attention to Yi Tian. At this time, Yi Tian kept throwing medicinal materials into the alchemy furnace with his left hand, and the temperature of the flame in his right hand kept increasing. Moreover, Yi Tian's early 5th grade soul force was constantly injected into the golden tripod alchemy furnace, refining the medicinal materials. Ningyu, Yi Tian can't really refine the supreme, true martial Dan, can he? Seeing Yi Tian's appearance, Lu Wei was a little worried and said. Ningyu smiled and said, "Don't worry, the supreme true martial Dan is not that easy to refine. That being said, I'm still a little worried," Lu Wei said while clenching her teeth. "Don't worry, if Yi Tian continues to refine like this, the Dan will explode in less than a minute." Ningyu waved his hand, signaling Lu Wei not to worry. "Dead duck, you dare to say that the Dan will explode in less than a minute?" Yi Tian heard Ningyu's words completely. Yi Tian snorted and said gloomily, "If I really explode in less than a minute, I will personally kneel down and apologize to you." "Hee hee, Yi Tian, you have to remember what you said. Don't go back on your words," Ningyu said with a faint smile. "Of course I will remember what I said," Yi Tian said proudly, not putting Ningyu in his heart at all. "Speaking of which, you can't be thinking of what?" Bang! However, as soon as Yi Tian finished speaking, his eyes widened, and his facial expression became extremely interesting. This muffled sound made the surrounding warriors' eyes fall on the golden tripod alchemy furnace. Bang, bang, bang! After the muffled sound, another 3 muffled sounds were heard. Swish! Hearing these muffled sounds, the warriors in the area instantly quieted down. It was so quiet that even breathing could be heard clearly. Gulp! Chapter 551. A Villain Pill Explosion. With Yi Tian's alchemy level, coupled with the assistance of the Golden Cauldron and the Purple Serene Fire, the pill still exploded. That's right, even horses stumble. Even Yi Tian's true martial Dan had an explosion. In the future, when we refine Dawn, we must be extremely careful. What do you guys think? Suddenly, a true martial realm early-stage martial artist hesitated and said, "Will Yi Tian kneel down and apologize to Ningyu?" The words of the true martial realm early-stage martial artist made the originally noisy area quiet down again. This time, the silence was abnormally terrifying, similar to the kind of deathly silence. Many students shifted their gazes towards Yi Tian. All of them wanted to see if Yi Tian would really kneel down and admit his mistake as he had promised Ningyu. Yi Tian stood in the same place, looking at the medicinal liquid bursting out of the golden cauldron, his face gloomy. Pill explosion. Since he started learning alchemy, this was the first time a pill exploded. In the past, when his soul force was low and the cauldron quality was very poor, the pill did not explode, but this time it actually exploded. Yi Tian, if you agree to bet, you must accept your loss. I did not force you. Ning Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said indifferently, "A gentleman's word is as fast as a whip. If you admit that you are a villain, you don't have to kneel down and apologize to me. You." At this time, Yi Tian's heart was filled with mixed feelings, as if he had eaten shit. What was originally in the bag turned out to be such a change, which was completely unexpected for Yi Tian. It seems that Yi Tian wants to act shamelessly. It should be. Yi Tian will never kneel down and apologize to Ningyu. If Yi Tian really kneels down, he will not only lose his face, but also his master Dan Chenzi's. Yeah, Dan Chenzi is an 8th grade alchemist. If he knew that his last disciple was defeated in alchemy and knelt down, he will definitely be furious. There's nothing he can do even if he's furious. Looking at Ningyu's attitude, Yi Tian has 2 choices today. First, he can admit that he's a vile person and doesn't have to kneel down to apologize. Second, he must kneel down to apologize. Yi Tian was already furious. Hearing the undisguised discussions of the students around him, he became even more furious. His chest heaved up and down uncontrollably, on the verge of exploding. Although he really wanted to refute, the truth was right in front of him, and he was powerless to argue. The current situation was very disadvantageous to him. Once Ning Yu got serious, he would have no way to deal with it. What's your decision? Do you want to kneel down and apologize to me, or do you want to admit that you're a vile person? Since he had one, Ning Yu did not want to waste time with Yi Tian. After all, he still had important things to do. Advancing the red demon sword to the monarch rank required 200,000 transcendent grade origin crystals and a quiet place to advance. Ning Yu had to find all of these things. He even had to find a place for Lu Wei to stay. After all, their family couldn't stay in the storage ring forever. It was impossible for the alchemist hall master, Lung Mian, and the others to stay in the storage ring for a long time. If they could find a place to stay, they could save a lot of trouble. Most importantly, Li Tongtian had already been treated by Sun Jiangwen. Now that he was more or less recovered, it was time for him to leave the storage ring. However, Ningyu did not want to let Yi Tian go so easily. He continued, "Before you make your decision, hand over the token to enter the Dan Wu pool." "Ningyu, I'll hand the token to you, and we'll write off today's matter. How about it?" Yi Tian took the token in his hand and said, "Also, I can introduce you to my master and let you become his disciple." Whoosh! Yi Tian's words immediately caused a stir among the surrounding students. Introduce Ningyu to Dan Chenzi? Become Dan Chenzi's disciple? One had to know that Dan Chenzi had already announced a long time ago that he would no longer accept disciples. With Yi Tian's talent in alchemy, perhaps Dan Chenzi would make an exception. If I were Ningyu, I would definitely agree to Yi Tian's request. Only a fool wouldn't agree. In the capital, there are at least 10,000 people who want to become Dan Chenzi's disciple. That's right. Even some 6th grade alchemists who have been famous for a long time want to become Dan Chenzi's disciple. The surrounding students were shocked to the extreme by the news that Yi Tian had thrown out. There were even some students who revealed looks of jealousy. The reaction of these students was clearly within Yi Tian's expectations, and he was very satisfied. However, when he looked at Ningyu, he was dumbfounded. This was because Ningyu did not listen to his words at all. "Don't waste your breath. Hurry up and hand over the token." As soon as Ningyu said this, he dashed out quickly and disappeared from Yi Tian's side in a flash. "My token!" Yi Tian looked down at his empty palm and could not help but shout, "Ningyu, take my token!" "Hey, Yi Tian, you're wrong." Ningyu interrupted Yi Tian and said calmly, "It's not your token, it's mine." "It seems like you don't want to kneel down and admit your mistake. If that's the case, I won't accompany you anymore. I'm Yi Tian." As he spoke, Ningyu pulled Lu Wei's hand and walked away. It was not until Ningyu and Lu Wei were far away that Yi Tian came to his senses. "Ah, Ningyu, I'm not done with you." Yi Tian shouted like a madman. Tomorrow, I will challenge you again in the alchemy competition. I hope you won't be a coward then. Ningyu, who was in the distance, stopped in his tracks. The alchemy competition is going to be held tomorrow. Frowning, Ningyu mumbled. It seems like I have one more thing to do. Ningyu had to participate in the alchemy competition organized by the Alchemy Union, no matter what. After all, Ningyu had promised President Zhou of Tianjin City's Alchemy Union that he would represent the Alchemy Union to participate in the alchemy competition. After delaying the alchemy competition for so long, it was finally going to be held. Ningyu had one more thing to do, which was to find President Zhou and participate in the alchemy competition. What a headache! Thinking about this, Ningyu could not help but quicken his steps. Soon, he disappeared from everyone's sight. I'm afraid that tomorrow's alchemy competition will be another fierce battle. It's hard to say. I heard that the Alchemy Union has the intention to open up the alchemy competition and make it a grand event for the Great Xia Kingdom. At that time, not only will the peerless genius of the Alchemy Union, Ren Xiangtian, participate in the alchemy competition, but some hidden 6th and even 7th grade alchemists will also send their last disciple to participate. Not only the last disciple of the alchemists, I heard that Danwu College will also send a group of disciples to participate. It seems that the alchemy competition this time will select 3 alchemy geniuses to represent Danwu College in the 100 Academy battle. Yes, let's go and register too. Who knows, we might stand out. The registration period is this afternoon. We can't miss it. Let's go and guard there now. Yi Tian did not care about the discussions of the students around him. His face was cold as he said fiercely, Chapter 552. Divine Physician Shop Ningyu, and Lu Wei didn't stop at all. After leaving the Danwu pool, they hurried towards Dongfang Ji's residence. These few days, Lu Wei had been staying at Dongfang Ji's place. Ningyu had to thank her no matter what. If it wasn't for Dongfang Ji, Lu Wei might have already been captured by the Imperial clan. Just based on this, Ningyu had to go over personally to thank Dongfang Ji. When did Ningyu return? Not sure. They seemed to have come from the Danwu pool. Danwu pool? Could it be that Ningyu returned a long time ago and has been cultivating in the Danwu pool? But that Lu Wei beside him isn't a cultivator from Danwu College. Don't tell me she just came out of the Danwu pool too? That's nothing. Lu Wei has been staying at Dongfang Ji's place for the past few days. In my opinion, it's very likely that Dongfang Ji has taken her in as his final disciple. It's understandable that she's cultivating in the Danwu pool for a period of time. Didn't Shuiyu Pavilion's mysterious faction announce it? They told Lu Wei to hurry to Shuiyu Pavilion before tonight. Otherwise, they'll get rid of her parents. I wonder if she'll go. Lu Wei can't be that stupid. Furthermore, with Ningyu's help, Dean Dongfang will probably come personally. Because Ningyu obtained first place in Danwu College's Sacred Institution examination, the cultivators of Danwu College were more familiar with him. Along the way, people kept pointing at them and gossiping. Comparatively speaking, people were more concerned about Lu Wei. Ning, you didn't take the students' discussions to heart. Instead, he quickened his pace. Dongfang Ji's residence wasn't too far from the Danwu pool. In a short while, Ningyu arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. Why are you here? As soon as he stopped in front of the courtyard, Ningyu saw a familiar figure. It wasn't Dongfang Ji, but Yan Hui. At this moment, Yan Hui's face was filled with disappointment. When he saw Ningyu, his expression turned for the better. Ningyu, there's something I need Dean Dongfang's help with, but he's not here. Yan Hui hesitated for a moment, but he still said, I heard he went to a meeting and won't be back for a while. Not here. Ningyu was taken aback. Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, Yan Hui, what matter do you need Dean Dongfang's help with? Why don't you tell me? About my master. Yan Hui gritted his teeth and said, his old man's illness can't be delayed any longer. Towards the end, Yan Hui's voice became softer and softer, even choking a little. Ning Yu's expression changed a little. To be able to make a grown man like Yan Hui cry, it seemed like he was really forced into a corner. In other words, his master's illness could not be delayed any longer. Let's go. I'll go with you. Yan Hui's master, Ning Yu, was still remembered. With a rank 6 soul power, he was paralyzed in bed all year round. At that time, Ning Yu discovered that Yan Hui's master was severely injured, and his body was heavily injured. However, at that time, Ning Yu's soul power was only at the rank 4 level. Even if he discovered Yan Hui's master's condition, it would be difficult to treat him. Moreover, Ning Yu and Yan Hui were not that close at that time. In addition, he was busy, so naturally he would not waste time and energy to think of a way to treat Yan Hui's master. Now that things have come to this is the only way. Hearing Ning Yu's words, Yan Hui's eyes lit up, but he quickly fell silent. In Yan Hui's opinion, although Ning Yu was a core disciple of Danwu College's Sacred Institute, it was very likely that he would be helpless when it came to his master's illness. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry up and go. Seeing Yan Hui's expression, Ning Yu did not expose him. He directly pulled Lu Wei and walked out of Danwu College. What Yan Hui did not know was that in Ning Yu's storage ring, there was a peak rank 7 Elixir Master, Sun Jiangwen, and an early stage rank 8 Elixir Master, Alchemy Master. Both of their methods and abilities were much stronger than Dongfang Ji's. I heard that this afternoon is the registration phase for the alchemy competition. On the way, Ning Yu and Yan Hui began to chat. That's right. This afternoon is the registration phase. Yan Hui nodded. There might be a lot of people participating in the alchemy competition this time, so the Alchemy Union has decided to register in advance so that the competition can officially start tomorrow. Does everyone have to register? Ning Yu asked. That's right. Yan Hui explained. I heard that there are 2 forms of registration. The first is for the Alchemy Union to register as a group. The second is for individuals to register individually. What's the difference? Ning Yu asked again. There's no difference. It's just that they register in the name of the Alchemy Union. Their final results will be recorded in their respective Alchemy Union. Their ranking will directly determine the allocation of resources for the Alchemy Union in each city next year. Yan Hui said. Fortunately, the registration is in the afternoon. I'll go take a look at Master Yan Hui's condition first before heading to the Alchemy Union to look for President Zhou Tong. Ning Yu mumbled. Actually, Ning Yu was a little worried. The agreed time with Zhou Tong had already passed. Zhou Tong might have already returned to Tianxian City. After all, if he couldn't find Ning Yu, Zhou Tong wouldn't be able to send out any students to participate in the alchemy competition. If he continued to stay in the capital, it would only increase his consumption. We're here. At this moment, Yan Hui stopped in front of a shop. Miracle Physician Shop. Senior brother Yan, you're finally back. Just as Ning Yu and the rest entered the shop, a chubby boy ran over with an anxious expression. Hurry up and take a look. Master is already unconscious. What? Hearing the chubby boy's words, Yan Hui was shocked. As he walked into the room, he asked, When did Master faint? Wasn't he still fine when I left? 10 minutes after you left, Master fainted, the chubby boy said hurriedly. Before he fainted, Master kept talking about you and asked me to call you back. How could I leave Master here alone? Fortunately, you came back in time. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do. As he spoke, the chubby boy was on the verge of crying. Early stage Xiantian, early stage 2nd grade soul force. Ever since he entered the shop, Ning Yu noticed that the chubby boy was different. When he first came to the Miracle Physician Shop, The chubby boy was only at the Hotian stage and had a peak first-grade soul force. How long had it been? His cultivation had risen to early stage Xiantian, and his soul force had reached early stage second grade. Such a speed of advancement was even faster than when he was in the past. Creak! At this moment, Yan Hui opened the door and entered the room where his master was. Huh! As soon as he stepped into the room, Ning Yu noticed something unusual. Early stage, 7th grade. Ning Yu was unusually shocked. Previously, Yan Hui's master soul force was only early stage 6th grade. How did it reach early stage 7th grade now? Chapter 553. Chapter 553. Death give full treatment, wait. While Ningyu was still in shock, Yan Hui had already arrived at the bedside and released his soul force in an attempt to probe his master's injuries. Upon seeing this, Ningyu hurriedly said, "Your master's soul strength is very weak now. It must not be disturbed. Not even the slightest bit of interference." In the end, Ningyu added, "Once his soul force is disturbed, it will be harder than ascending to the heavens to cure him." Hearing this, Yan Hui immediately withdrew his soul force back into his body. His face revealed waves of lingering fear. Fortunately, Ningyu came with him. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Ningyu, do you have a way to cure my master?" After coming back to his senses, Yan Hui recalled what Ningyu had just said and hurriedly said, "As long as you can cure my master, Yan Hui's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. Even if Ningyu could cure his master, he would not be able to repay him. Medicinal herbs, magical treasures, medicinal pills, and crystals. Ning, you should not be lacking in these things." In the end, he really had no way to repay Ningyu. "What are you talking about? If you trust me, then leave the room with your junior brother." Ning Yu said solemnly, "I will do everything possible to save your master." "I trust you. Of course I trust you." For now, Yan Hui could only place his hopes on Ningyu. "You have to believe it, even if you don't believe it." After responding, Yan Hui walked out of the room with the fat boy. "Wait a moment." Before Yan Hui left the room, Ningyu said, "Lu Wei, you go out with Yan Hui." Lu Wei knew that she wouldn't be able to help Ningyu in the process of saving people. So when she heard Ningyu's words, she didn't hesitate and immediately left the room with Yan Hui. Woof woof. However, Furball roared at Ningyu twice before lying down in Lu Wei's arms, no longer saying a word. "Lu Wei, leave Furball behind." Seeing Furball's reaction, Ningyu slightly frowned and then said, "In addition, without my permission, no one can enter this room." "All right." Since Ningyu had requested it, Lu Wei could only unwillingly place Furball on the ground. Creak! After that, Lu Wei and Yan Hui left the room together. Furball glanced at Ningyu before finding a comfortable place to lie down. "Go and squat in front of the door. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter the room." Ningyu arrived at Furball's side and raised his leg to kick him. "Shoo!" Furball's reaction was beyond Ningyu's imagination. When Ningyu raised his leg, Furball exerted strength in all four limbs and directly jumped in front of the door. It first glanced at Ningyu with disdain. Then Furball lay on the ground with its eyes closed. Seeing Furball's lazy appearance, Ningyu was a little angry. However, Ningyu thought about it and felt that there was no need to be angry with Furball. He directly went to the bedside and began to examine Yan Hui's master's injuries. Because he could not use his soul force to examine, Ningyu could only use his perception and carefully enter Yan Hui's master's body. Hiss! As soon as his perception entered Yan Hui's master's body, Ningyu could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because the condition of Yan Hui's master's body was abnormally terrible. Terrible to the extreme. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all wrapped up in a ball of black liquid. Moreover, This black liquid was constantly seeping into Yen Hui's master's 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Although the speed was relatively slow, after years of accumulation, a large portion had already entered his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. F***CK. When Ningyu's perception shifted to Yen Hui's master's legs, Ningyu directly cursed and his face instantly darkened. Yen Hui's master's knees were almost comminuted. The most serious thing was that under Yen Hui's master's knees, there was a large amount of black liquid accumulated. The black liquid here was much stronger than the one in the 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and its corrosiveness was unusually strong. The condition of Yen Hui's master's body caused Ning Yu's expression to become very solemn. Taking a deep breath, Ning Yu shifted his perception to Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness. Peak rank, 7 soul force. As soon as Ning Yu's perception entered Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness, his mouth opened wide, revealing a look of disbelief. Although the matter of the black liquid shocked Ning Yu, compared to the current shock, it was completely insignificant. The strength of his soul force is only at the early stage of rank 7. Why is there a residual strength of a peak rank 7 soul force in his sea of consciousness? Ning Yu's brows furrowed slightly, sinking into deep thought. Logically speaking, Yen Hui's master soul force was only at the early stage of rank 7, still a long way from peak rank 7. Why was there a peak rank 7 soul force in his sea of consciousness? It seemed like the peak rank 7 soul force in Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness was not the same as his early stage rank 7 soul force. There was a huge difference between the two. Peak rank 7 soul force should not be Yen Hui's master's, but left behind by someone else. In an instant, Ningyu made a judgment. The peak rank 7 soul force in Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness was very likely the culprit. If he wanted Yen Hui's master to wake up, he could only expel the peak rank 7 soul force in his sea of consciousness, or else the situation would become very bad. Sun Jiangwen, alchemist hall master. After thinking about it, Ningyu said in a low voice, "I need your help." Ningyu's soul force was only at peak rank 5. It was very difficult to expel the peak rank 7 soul force in Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness. What is it? Sun Jiangwen and the alchemist hall master flew out from the storage ring and answered. See if you can expel the peak rank 7 soul force in his sea of consciousness without touching the early stage rank 7 soul force in his sea of consciousness. Ningyu pointed at the old man on the bed and said. Hearing Ningyu's words, Sun Jiangwen and the alchemist hall master immediately released their senses, carefully probing Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness. After a while, they both withdrew their senses at the same time. After looking at each other, the alchemist hall master said, "The owner of the peak rank 7 soul force is very smart. If you want to expel the soul force he left behind, you must touch the old man's early stage rank 7 soul force." I know all this. I just want to ask you if you have any ideas. Ningyu said in a low voice. There is a way, but the risk is a little high. The alchemist hall master gritted his teeth and said, I only have 10% confidence. Tell me about it. Ningyu frowned slightly and said, My soul force is at the early stage rank 8 soul force, slightly stronger than the old man's soul force in his sea of consciousness. I can slowly extract the peak rank 7 soul force from the old man's sea of consciousness. The alchemist hall master explained. In the process, I can't guarantee that I won't touch the old man's early stage rank 7 soul force. Chapter 554. Make trouble a martial artist whose soul power control is even stronger than yours? Ningyu was slightly startled and then said, Which stage of soul suppression can you achieve? The first stage or the second stage? So you also know the division of soul suppression. Hearing this, the alchemist hall leader looked at Ningyu in astonishment and replied, I can barely use the second stage of soul suppression, and I'm not very familiar with it yet. The second stage of soul suppression, Ningyu murmured. Now, Ningyu could basically use the second stage of soul suppression, and could even try to use the third stage. In other words, Ningyu's control over his soul force was even better than the hall master. Tell me what you plan to do. Ningyu did not tell the alchemist hall master that he was a suitable candidate. Instead, he remained calm and collected. As long as you can find a martial artist with a stronger soul power control than me, I can release my soul power control and let that martial artist control it. The alchemist hall master explained, if that's the case, there's at least a 50% chance of expelling the peak 7th grade soul force in the old man's knowledge C. I can also contribute my soul force. That way, the success rate will increase by another 10%, Sun Jiangwen added. Although the strength of Sun Jiangwen's soul force was not as strong as that of the alchemist hall master, it had reached the peak of grade 7, which was a considerable help. That's not a bad choice. Ningyu frowned as he considered the pros and cons. Although the strength of his soul force was only at the peak of the 5th grade, as a peak of the 9th grade alchemist in his previous life, his control over his soul force surpassed the majority of alchemists. Controlling both the alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen's soul power at the same time might be somewhat difficult. However, for Ningyu, it was not too much of a problem. How about this? I will control your soul force and expel the peak 7th grade soul force from the old man's sea of consciousness. After a while, Ningyu said, Release your soul power, I'll control it. You. Hearing Ningyu's words, the alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen revealed shocked expressions. Ningyu's soul power was only at the peak of rank 5. Compared to them, it was not just a little bit weaker. How could they believe what Ningyu said? Moreover, this matter was of great importance. If Ningyu's stubbornness caused the old man's death, they might even be blamed for it. Therefore, they did not want to hand over the control of their soul force. At the very least, they did not want to hand over the control of their soul force before confirming that Ningyu's soul force control exceeded theirs. If you don't believe me, you can use soul suppression on me. Seeing the expressions of the alchemist hall master and the others, Ningyu said, Use your strongest soul suppression. The alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen exchanged glances once again. However, this time it was Sun Jiangwen and not the alchemist hall master who exerted soul suppression. Their thinking was very simple. Sun Jiangwen's soul suppression might be slightly weaker, so it wouldn't hurt Ningyu. Swoosh! In the next moment, Sun Jiangwen exerted his peak rank 7 soul power and tried to suppress Ningyu. Don't waste time. Use your strongest soul suppression. Ningyu stood still, not affected by Sun Jiangwen's soul power at all. Instead, he said impatiently, All right. Seeing that Ningyu was safe and sound, Sun Jiangwen was a little surprised. After the surprise, he immediately increased the soul suppression and directly used the second stage of soul suppression. Come out. Facing Sun Jiangwen's second stage of soul suppression, Ningyu exerted his peak rank 5 soul power and formed a soul power shield in front of him. After all, Sun Jiangwen's soul power was at the peak rank 7 soul power. When he used the second stage of soul suppression, it was not easy for Ningyu to resist. What? Seeing that Ningyu easily resisted his soul suppression, Sun Jiangwen's eyes widened and his face was full of surprise. What kind of monster was Ningyu? How could he even resist his soul suppression? It seemed that you still had some strength left. Don't waste time. Quickly exert your soul power and let me control it. Ningyu waved his hand and gestured to the alchemist and the others to hurry up. For Yen Hui's master, time was life. If this dragged on, he might very well die. All right. This time the alchemist and Sun Jiangwen did not refuse. They immediately exerted their soul power and handed the control over to Ningyu. Thank you. Ningyu expressed his gratitude and directly controlled the alchemist's early rank, 8 soul power, to carefully enter Yan Hui's master's knowledge ocean. The peak rank, 7 soul power, and the early rank, 7 soul power in Yan Hui's master's knowledge ocean had basically touched each other. A little carelessness, and all would be for naught. Therefore, in the process of expelling the peak rank, 7 soul power, Ningyu was highly focused and did not dare to slack off or be careless. In fact, Ningyu did not even dare to use his hands to wipe the beads of sweat on his forehead. He was afraid that something might go wrong. While Ningyu was treating Yan Hui's master, Furball lazily stretched its limbs. Shortly after, as if it had discovered a new continent, all its fur stood up. Shio! In the next moment, Furball's figure flashed and directly jumped onto Ningyu's shoulder. Furball! Ningyu was fully focused on expelling the peak rank, 7 soul power in Yan Hui's master's knowledge ocean. When Furball suddenly jumped onto his shoulder, he was naturally shocked. In fact, he almost failed at the last moment. With Furball doing this, Ningyu immediately withdrew the alchemist's master's soul power from Yan Hui's knowledge ocean and said to Furball, "What the hell are you doing?" Woof woof. Being scolded so harshly by Ningyu, Furball softly barked a few times and extended a small paw to point at the old man on the bed. Then, Furball pointed at himself and barked a few more times. "You mean you can expel the peak rank, 7 soul power from his knowledge ocean?" Ningyu was slightly dumbfounded and hesitantly asked. Woof woof. Furball revealed an excited expression. "How confident are you?" Ningyu pondered for a moment and asked. No matter what, Ningyu could not joke around with Yan Hui's master's life. Although it would be a little difficult for him to treat, there was still a 50% chance of success. Woof! Furball revealed a furry little paw and extended a furry little paw. Perhaps seeing that Ningyu was not too satisfied, Furball extended another little paw. "Are you kidding me?" Ningyu opened his mouth, a little confused. Only Furball dared to say that he was 100% confident. If it were anyone else, they would not dare to be so confident. Woof woof. Looking at Ningyu's expression, Furball's legs suddenly exerted force, and it jumped off from Ningyu's shoulder. Furball! Furball's sudden action caused Ningyu's expression to change. Yan Hui's master was heavily injured. If Furball messed around, the consequences would be unthinkable. Therefore, Ningyu's first thought was to stop Furball. He could not allow it to treat him recklessly. What? Chapter 555. Chapter 555. Chapter 555. One's work is complete. Whoosh. Furball was very fast, jumping onto Yan Hui's master's shoulder in the blink of an eye. Afterward, Furball extended its 2 little claws, one on Master Yan Hui's forehead and the other on his chest. Hiss! You could clearly sense 2 weak streams of air flowing out from Furball's claws, entering Yan Hui's master's body. One stream of qi entered Yan Hui's master's sea of consciousness, and the other stream of qi entered his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Ningyu had never expected such a change. You really do have some skill. At first, Ningyu had been rather worried that Furball would act recklessly, but now it seemed that he had been a little too nervous. This was because after a stream of air entered Yan Hui's master's sea of consciousness, it erupted with an extremely powerful devouring force. In other words, this stream of air was almost plundering the peak 7th grade soul force. Based on this speed, it would only take 10 minutes for the peak 7th grade soul force in Master Yan Hui's sea of consciousness to be completely devoured. Moreover, Master Yan Hui's own early stage rank 7 soul force was not affected at all. This was the scariest. It should be noted that not even Ningyu dared to say that he had a 100% chance of extracting the peak 7th grade soul force from Yen Hui's master's mind. But Fur Ball was able to do it so easily. The black liquid in my 5 viscera and 6 bowels is also being expelled. Suddenly, Ningyu noticed the situation in front of Yen Hui's master's chest. Traces of black liquid flowed out from his chest. Although the speed was slow, it would definitely be completely drained within 10 minutes. Since Furball's treatment was effective, Ningyu did not say anything else. Instead, he paid close attention to Yen Hui's master's condition, ready to help at any time. The alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen were already dumbfounded. They stared blankly at Furball, who looked like a god, not daring to believe their eyes. After living for so long, he had really lived like a dog. Now he was even worse than a dog. Pucci. While Harry Ball was trying his best to save Yen Hui's master, there was a secret room in the Alchemy Union in the capital of the Great Xia Kingdom. An old man suddenly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, and his aura weakened slightly. He's not dead yet. The old man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his face filled with viciousness. I shouldn't have held back in the first place. If we don't remove the roots, the weeds will grow again with the spring breeze. After the pill forging competition, you must. The old man's eyes revealed a ruthless glint as he said, "Forget it. I'll send someone to investigate now to avoid any unforeseen circumstances." With that, the old man got up and left the room. Ningyu was unaware of what was happening in the Alchemy Union. At this moment, his gaze was fixed on Yen Hui's master. As time passed, the peak rank 7 soul force in Yen Hui's master's sea of consciousness was almost completely taken away. Pucci. Suddenly, Yen Hui's master opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Cough, cough. Master Yen Hui coughed twice before turning his head to look at Furball on his shoulder and shouting, "This! Senior, don't panic!" Seeing Yen Hui's master's action, Ningyu hurriedly said, "The reason why you could wake up is all because of his help." All because of his help? Hearing Ningyu's words, Yen Hui's master was stunned on the spot and put down his right hand that was just raised. In the beginning, Yen Hui's master was skeptical. However, when he felt the changes in his internal organs, his expression was abnormally interesting. Swoosh! Right at this moment, Furball retracted its pair of small claws at the same time, its face full of exhaustion. Seeing this, Ningyu immediately took out a supreme Great Essence crystal from his storage ring and threw it to Furball. Furball did not stand on ceremony with Ningyu. It carried the supreme Great Essence crystal and flew to the other side, starting to chew on it. I can't believe that the injuries that have troubled me for so long are actually cured. Yen Hui's master slightly checked the condition of his body, took a deep breath, and said to Ningyu, "I can't thank you enough for your great kindness. Dan Xingzi will remember this kindness." Dan Xingzi? Ningyu was slightly stunned. This was the first time he heard the old man's real name. However, Ningyu seemed to have heard the name Dan Xingzi somewhere before. "What, you are Dan Xingzi?" Ningyu didn't know who Dan Xingzi was, but the Alchemy Master Hall Master and Sun Jiangwen were very clear. They were from the Corpsine sect, and the Corpsine sect was entrenched in the Great Xia Kingdom. They were very clear about the elite alchemy masters of the Great Xia Kingdom. "You know Senior Dan Xingzi?" Ningyu frowned. "I've heard of him." Sun Jiangwen looked at Dan Xingzi and explained, "A long time ago, 2 alchemy geniuses appeared in the Great Xia Kingdom. One is Dan Xingzi, and the other is this one, Dan Xingzi." After listening to Sun Jiangwen's story, Ningyu revealed a solemn expression. It turned out that Dan Xingzi and Dan Xingzi were both alchemy geniuses. Back then, they were known as the people with the highest hopes of advancing to the 8th grade alchemy master in the Great Xia Kingdom. However, Dan Xingzi suddenly disappeared overnight. From then on, it was as if he had evaporated from the world. No one knew his whereabouts. Someone once asked Dan Xingzi, but Dan Xingzi kept his mouth shut about this matter. Furthermore, if anyone mentioned Dan Xingzi in front of Dan Xingzi would fly into a rage. As time passed, the name Dan Xingzi became a taboo in the capital and was gradually forgotten by everyone. It's just a name. I didn't think that someone would still remember it. Dan Xingzi seemed to be more open-minded as he smiled and said, "How many years has it been? I finally have the possibility to stand up again." "Senior, your legs?" Ningyu pointed at Dan Xingzi's legs and said, "It's fine. My soul spirit force has already recovered. As for the injuries on my legs, I can slowly treat them." Dan Xingzi waved his hand and said, "Ningyu, I can already try to refine some elixirs now. If you have any needs in the future, you can mention it. I will help you refine elixirs unconditionally. After so many years, I might not have other things, but I still have quite a lot of herbs and essence crystals. Because the alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen concealed their soul spirit force, and because Dan Xingzi had just recovered his soul spirit perception, he didn't notice the abnormality of the alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen. Until now, Dan Xingzi still thought that the two of them were ordinary people. "Senior, the one who healed your injuries was Furball. It has nothing to do with me." Ningyu felt that he couldn't take Furball's credit for himself. Dan Xingzi looked at Furball, who was eating the supreme great essence crystals, and said hesitantly, "I've said it before. I might not have other things, but I still have quite a lot of essence crystals." Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Dan Xingzi swung his sleeves, and a storage bag flew out and went towards Ningyu. "Ningyu, pass these essence crystals to Furball. Furball for me. Also, tell him that if he needs essence crystals in the future, he can come and ask me anytime. I still have some left." Chapter 556. Enemy Attack Hiss. After receiving the storage pouch, Ningyu slightly released his soul perception into the storage pouch. As soon as his soul perception entered the storage pouch, Ningyu couldn't help but gasp, and his eyes revealed an extremely shocked expression. The reason why Ningyu was shocked wasn't because there were few origin crystals in the storage pouch. Too many. It was truly too many. The origin crystals in the storage pouch were all transcendent grade. Ningyu roughly glanced at it and noticed that there were at least 100,000 transcendent grade origin crystals. Dan Xingzi gave away so many origin crystals just like that, and he didn't even bat an eyelid. "That's Senior. Pardon me for asking." Ningyu said to Dan Xingzi, "How much do you have in stock?" Dan Xingzi didn't answer Ningyu at the first possible moment. Instead, he looked at the alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen, and then cast an inquiring gaze at Ningyu. "We're on the same side." Ningyu knew what Dan Xingzi meant, and he indicated that he could speak without worry. Actually, it's not too much. Since Ningyu said that the alchemist hall master and the others were on the same side, Dan Xingzi didn't ask any more, and he said, "The origin crystals in the storage pouch are only 1/10 of my stock." "So much?" Hearing Dan Xingzi's words, Ningyu's mind started to work. The Red Fiend sword needed at least 200,000 transcendent grade origin crystals to advance to the monarch rank. Dan Xingzi possessed 1,000,000 transcendent grade origin crystals. If he could borrow these origin crystals, then the Red Fiend sword's advancement to the monarch rank would be a sure thing. "Senior, I need a large amount of transcendent grade origin crystals for the time being. I wonder if..." Ningyu hesitated and said, "Lend me some first." "Lend." Dan Xingzi raised his brows, and he revealed a displeased expression. "I won't lend them to you." Then Dan Xingzi changed the topic and said, "How many transcendent grade origin crystals do you need? I can give them to you unconditionally." 200,000. When he heard Dan Xingzi's first sentence, Ningyu felt slightly awkward. But after hearing his second sentence, Ning Yu secretly thought that ginger was indeed spicier with age. He directly stretched out 2 fingers and said, "I need 200,000 supreme origin crystals in 3 days." Within 3 days, Dan Xingzi fell into deep thought when he heard this. After a while, Dan Xingzi said, "It's rather troublesome within 3 days, because my transcendent grade origin crystal isn't in the capital, and it'll take 3 days to travel there and back. Furthermore, only I can open that place. If anyone else tries to forcefully open it, that place will explode on its own. Looks like I'll have to figure it out myself." A look of disappointment appeared on Ning Yu's face. 200,000 transcendent grade essence crystals. It seemed like he had to think of a way himself. Fortunately, Dan Xingzi took out 100,000 transcendent grade essence crystals. Next, he only needed to find another 100,000 transcendent grade essence crystals. As the saying goes, a penny stumps a hero. 100,000 transcendent grade origin crystals was enough to give Ning Yu a headache for a long time. Bang! Just as Ning Yu was feeling a little disappointed, a muffled sound suddenly rang out from outside the room. Oh no! The moment the muffled sound rang out, Ning Yu's expression changed drastically. He had no time to think and immediately rushed out of the room. "Let's go!" The alchemist hall master and Sun Jiangwen looked at each other. Then both rose from the ground and followed closely behind Ning Yu. "Let me give you a piece of advice. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and scram." Inside the miracle physician shop, a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s casually pushed Yan Hui back and said to Lu Wei in a sinister manner, "Seeing that you're a woman, I won't attack you for the time being. Otherwise, I'll let you know why flowers are so red. You can't go in." Yan Hui climbed up from the ground with difficulty and stood in front of Lu Wei. "I can't go in." The middle-aged man's lips curled up and he said with a smile, "Haha. Looks like you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Fine, I'll show you what I'm made of." As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man suddenly dashed out. Swoosh! The middle-aged man's speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived beside Yan Hui. Bang! The middle-aged man kicked out, and it landed squarely on Yan Hui's chest. Yan Hui was already severely injured. Now that he was kicked in the chest by the middle-aged man, his body flew out and slammed hard into the wall behind him. Uft! A crisp sound rang out. Yan Hui spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. His face became extremely pale, without any color of blood. "You can't go in." The fat boy was rather daring. He was not frightened by the middle-aged man and shouted, "You're a bad person. I can't let you hurt Master." "Master?" Hearing that, the middle-aged man's heart shook and he murmured, "Looks like what Dan Xingzi said was true. It should be this place." Suppressing the excitement in his heart, the middle-aged man did not take the fat boy seriously. Instead, he said to Lu Wei again, "I don't want to kill, but don't force me. You have 2 choices now. 1, leave voluntarily. 2, be killed by me." Swoosh! In the next moment, the middle-aged man displayed his aura and crazily pressed down on Lu Wei. Humph! A mere early yin-yang realm martial artist dares to behave atrociously here. However, just as the middle-aged man displayed his aura, a cold snort came from the room. Swoosh! After the cold snort, a figure instantly appeared beside the middle-aged man and threw a punch at his head. Oh no! Even though the middle-aged man was at the early stage of yin-yang realm, he was shocked by the violent primordial qi contained in his fist. He did not dare to be careless. He quickly retracted his aura and gathered all the yuan energy in his body on his wrist. With a backhand punch, his fist collided with the figure's fist. Crack! When the 2 fists collided, the middle-aged man only felt a huge force wreaking havoc on his fist. Moreover, it seemed like it was spreading to his entire body. The middle-aged man did not dare to be careless. He quickly took a few steps back and used his skill to resist the force of the fist. Ningyu, seeing the familiar figure that suddenly appeared, Lu Wei was pleasantly surprised. It's good that you're fine. Seeing that Lu Wei was fine, Ningyu relaxed a little. Harryball is in the room. Go find him. I have something to take care of. Be careful. Lu Wei knew what Ningyu was going to do next, so she did not stay and directly entered the room. Go and check on Yan Hui's injuries. After Lu Wei left, Ningyu said to the alchemist and Sun Jiangwen, note down every injury on his body. I will need it later. After doing all this, Ningyu walked towards the middle-aged man. After a while, Ningyu came to the middle-aged man's side and said lightly, Tell me, why are you here? Uft, you are only a mid-primal core martial artist. How dare you behave atrociously in front of me? Although the middle-aged man knew that Ningyu was very strong, he did not think that Ningyu was a match for him. As far as he was concerned, the reason he was at a slight disadvantage in the battle with Ningyu earlier was entirely because of his carelessness. Chapter 5:57. Taste it all over if you know what's good for you. Hurry up and F***CK off. Otherwise, I'll kill you as well. When the middle-aged man finished speaking, Ningyu's expression turned completely gloomy. There was a path to heaven, but you refused to take it. There's no door to hell, but you barged in. I know even if you don't say it. You must have been sent by Dan Chenzi. Ningyu stared at the middle-aged man's eyes, hoping to find some clues from his eyes. Actually, when he heard Sun Jiangwen's introduction of Dan Chenzi in the room, Ningyu had vaguely determined that Dan Chenzi's injury was most likely related to Dan Chenzi. Now that the middle-aged man had suddenly appeared, Ningyu had no choice but to suspect Dan Chenzi. As expected, the middle-aged man's eyes flickered indeterminately when he heard Ningyu's words, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. However, the look of surprise only lasted for a moment, and the middle-aged man said coldly, I have no idea what you're talking about at all. I only came here for one purpose, and that is to see the pill refinement master in the room. Hee, I really admire you. Ningyu smiled at first, then he changed the topic and said, I'm just admiring your stupidity. Opportunities are fought for by yourself. You can't blame me for not grasping it. Ha ha ha. The middle-aged man laughed out loud and said coldly, Who do you think you are to speak to me like that? I didn't want to start a massacre, but all signs indicate that the pill refinement master in the room is the person I'm looking for. Since that's the case, all of you must die today. Boom! In the next moment, the middle-aged man took out a medicinal pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Then, a monstrous aura erupted from his body. Compared to the aura from before, it had forcefully increased by a level this time. In other words, the middle-aged man had erupted with the aura of an early-stage yin-yang stage earlier, and now he had erupted with the aura of an intermediate-stage yin-yang stage. Forcefully increasing your cultivation with medicinal pills? Don't you know that the side effects are severe? Ningyu frowned. Now that things have come to this, I won't hide anything from you. The middle-aged man said gloomily, I presume you already know that the martial artist in the room is Dan Xingzi, and I was entrusted by Dan Xingzi this time to take Dan Xingzi's head. Irrelevant answer. Ningyu shook his head, then rose from the ground and arrived beside the middle-aged man in the blink of an eye. The primal qi in his sea of consciousness surged out and gathered on his wrist. Ningyu punched out, bringing with it a violent yuan qi gale towards the middle-aged man's chest. If I was still at the early yin-yang realm, I might not be able to defeat you. But now that I'm at the mid-yin-yang realm, it's more than enough to kill you. As he watched Ningyu approach him, a cold expression appeared on the middle-aged man's face. Then, the middle-aged man clenched his right hand into a fist, which also contained a violent fluctuation of yuan qi. Without any deviation, it collided with Ning Yu's fist. Bang! The two fists collided, but this time they did not separate. Instead, the two fists were stuck together. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth, and the primal chi in his sea of consciousness poured out and entered Ning Yu's fist through his fist. You want to compare the density of primal chi with me? The corners of Ning Yu's mouth curled up slightly. Immediately, a wave of primal chi that was no weaker than the middle-aged man's swept out of his sea of consciousness and gathered on his fist. What? Seeing the even more violent fluctuation of primal chi on Ning Yu's fist, the middle-aged man revealed a horrified expression. This was because, as the primal chi on Ning Yu's fist appeared, he realized that he was already at a slight disadvantage. This was the most unacceptable thing to him. One had to know that he was at the early Yin-Yang realm, and he had used elixirs to raise his cultivation to the mid-Yin-Yang realm in a short period of time. Ning Yu was only at the mid-primal core realm, so why was his primal chi even denser than his? This day next year will be the anniversary of my death. Many people have said this to me. As Ning Yu increased the flow of primal chi, he said to the middle-aged man, but unfortunately, all the warriors who have said this to me, without exception, have all gone to the same place. What place? The middle-aged man was stunned as he asked. The underworld. Ning Yu said calmly, It's not that easy to kill me. The middle-aged man could not just sit and wait for death. Not only did he gather all the primal chi in his body on his fist, he even burned his blood essence in an attempt to kill Ning Yu. All right. At this moment, Sun Jiangwen said in a low voice, Yan Hui's injuries are very serious. More than 10 bones in his body are broken, and his soul has suffered a very serious injury. Hearing this, Ning Yu's expression became very ugly. He had originally thought that Yan Hui had only suffered some superficial injuries. Who would have thought that even his soul power had been injured? Soul power was different from other things. Once it was injured, it would cost a lot to heal it. What injuries did Yan Hui suffer? Return them all at once. The primal chi in Ning Yu's sea of consciousness poured out and surged into his fist. Bang! Originally, the middle-aged man could still be evenly matched with Ning Yu, but as the primal chi in Ning Yu's fist increased, he gradually fell into a disadvantage. In the next moment, Ning Yu's fist suddenly exerted force and directly pushed the middle-aged man back a few feet. A metallic taste came from his throat, causing the middle-aged man to spit out a mouthful of blood. His breathing became somewhat weak. Don't just stand there. What injuries did Yan Hui suffer? Give him all of them. Ning Yu waved his hand, indicating that the alchemist hall master could make his move. Hearing this, the alchemist hall master's figure immediately flashed and appeared in front of the middle-aged man. Humph! A mere Yuandan. The middle-aged man thought that the alchemist hall master was just an ordinary martial artist and snorted coldly. However, before he could finish a sentence, his eyes widened as he stared at the martial artist in front of him with a face full of shock. Peak advanced yin-yang stage. Only now did the middle-aged man wake up as if from a dream. It turned out that this martial artist was the most amazing existence. His cultivation and strength far surpassed that of Ning Yu. However, the middle-aged man's reaction was clearly a little too late. After receiving Ning Yu's order, the alchemist hall master immediately displayed his initial grade 8 soul power and unscrupulously pressed against the middle-aged man's sea of consciousness. The middle-aged man's soul power was only at the initial grade 6 soul power. How could he withstand the pressure of the alchemist hall master's soul power? The result was obvious. The middle-aged man let out a miserable shriek like a pig being slaughtered. Then, like a deflated balloon, he sat paralyzed on the ground. Did the middle-aged man think that he would be safe just by sitting paralyzed on the ground? The answer was obviously no. This was because the alchemist hall master's order was very clear. Whatever injuries Yan Hui suffered, he had to let the middle-aged man suffer. Just now, he had only crippled the middle-aged man's soul power. Next, he had to break a dozen of his bones. Crack, crack, crack. The alchemist hall master did things swiftly and decisively, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Chapter 558. Settle every time the hall leader punched. A bone in the middle-aged man's body would be broken. After a while, the hall leader stopped. More than 10 bones in the middle-aged man's body had already been broken. You have one last chance to live. Ningyu approached the middle-aged man and said slowly, "State Dan Chinzi's cultivation level and the strength of his soul." "Ha ha ha." Hiss. The middle-aged man laughed wildly, but he did not expect it to agitate the wounds on his body, causing him to grimace in pain. Even so, the middle-aged man still laughed evilly. "It seems that you are still very afraid of Dan Chinzi." As he spoke, the middle-aged man's gaze swept across the crowd. The middle-aged man then said coldly, "To tell you the truth, not only is Dan Chinzi's soul strong, but his strength is also heaven-defying. Dan Chinzi only needs to use half of his strength to get rid of you small fries. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and let me go. Dan Chinzi already knows that I'm here. If I'm killed here, Dan Chinzi will definitely not let you go. Sigh." Hearing this, Ningyu sighed softly and said, "I was thinking of sparing your life, but since you're asking for it, I can only apologize." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Ningyu's eyes turned cold. A blue flame appeared on his fist, and he instantly charged forward. "I let you have a taste of the azure spiritual fire." Ningyu growled as he threw a punch at the middle-aged man. Looking at the expanding flames in his eyes, the middle-aged man's eyes revealed a hint of despair. He was currently heavily injured. Not only was his soul damaged, but more than 10 bones in his body had been broken. He could only watch helplessly as Ningyu attacked him. "My friend Ningyu, have mercy." However, just as Ningyu's fist was 10 centimeters away from the middle-aged man, a voice suddenly rang in his ears. Whoosh! Ningyu raised his eyebrows when he heard this familiar voice, and he immediately stopped. "This is a grudge between me and Dan Chinzi. I want to settle it myself." Dan Chinzi's voice rang out in a timely manner. "Leave this person to me. I promise I'll handle it properly. Since Senior has spoken, I wouldn't dare to disobey." Ningyu glared at the middle-aged man, then took a few steps back and ignored him. Ningyu's sudden action caused the middle-aged man to be somewhat dumbfounded. Originally, he thought that he would definitely die today. Who would have thought that Ningyu would not kill him? Although he didn't know why Ningyu stopped, it was still good to be alive. "Sun Jiangwen, how confident are you in curing Yan Hui's soul force?" Since Dan Xingzi wanted to take over the middle-aged man, Ningyu no longer asked about it. Instead, he started to care about Yan Hui. Yan Hui's soul force was injured by the middle-aged man, and it seemed to be more serious. "It's not a big problem to cure it," Sun Jiangwen said hesitantly. "It's just that it will take a long time." "How long?" Ningyu asked with a frown. "Around 7 days," Sun Jiangwen answered. 7 days, huh? Ningyu sank into contemplation. Tomorrow was the day the alchemy competition would be held. He naturally did not have time to stay here and treat Yan Hui. How about this? Alchemy Hall Master will stay behind to treat Yan Hui and also look after Dan Xingzi at the same time to ensure his safety. Thinking about it, Ningyu said, "Contact me anytime if there's any problem." Swoosh! After giving the instructions, Ningyu dashed into the room with a swoosh. "Ningyu, today's matter is all thanks to you." Seeing Ningyu enter, Dan Xingzi cupped his fists and said, "I owe you another favor. When I recover, I'll be at your disposal at any time." Today's events made Dan Xingzi completely see through it. People who verbally treated you well might not necessarily treat you well. Only when something happened would one know who treated you well sincerely. Back then, his relationship with Dan Xingzi was very good. In the end, wasn't he still framed the same way? Not only did Ningyu save him, he even saved Yan Hui and the fat boy. It could be said that if not for Ningyu rushing over today, they would be dead for sure. Senior, my relationship with Yan Hui is very good. Moreover, this matter is just lifting a finger for me. Ningyu waved his hand, indicating that Dan Xingzi need not take it to heart. This place is already exposed. Why don't? For the middle-aged man to be able to find this place in Ningyu's view, the rest of the people would definitely be able to find it too. If Dan Xingzi continued to stay here, it would inevitably attract Dan Xingzi's attention. This place is just a foothold of mine in the capital. Dan Xingzi smiled and said, "Don't look at how I'm already in dire straits. In the capital, I still have some friends. There are other footholds." Hearing Dan Xingzi's words, Ningyu's heart stirred. Then he said, "I have 2 friends who lack a foothold. I wonder if, no problem. Forget about 2, even if it's 8 or 10, I can arrange it properly too." Dan Xingzi patted his chest and guaranteed. Wandering in the capital all year round and not being discovered by Dan Xingzi, it was enough to show that Dan Xingzi still had some power. Letting Dan Xingzi help look after some of Lu Wei's parents, Ningyu was more at ease. Moreover, Ningyu already decided to leave the Alchemy Master Hall master behind. The Alchemy Master Hall master was a peak late-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist with formidable strength. Even if something happened, at least there would be someone to take care of and could persist until he rushed over. Whoosh! In the next instant, Ningyu flicked his sleeves and threw the storage ring into the air. 2 beams of light shot out from the storage ring. Immediately, 2 figures landed steadily in the room. These 2 figures were none other than precisely Lu Wei's parents. However, at this moment, Lu Wei's mother was being held in her father's arms, and her breathing was very weak. A magic treasure that can store people. The instant Lu Wei's parents appeared, Dan Xingzi's expression changed slightly, and his face was filled with surprise. After a brief moment of shock, Dan Xingzi shifted his gaze to Lu Wei's parents. If I'm not wrong, they should be the current Pavilion Master and Pavilion Master's wife. Dan Xingzi sighed softly and said, "I've also heard about what happened in Snow Domain Pavilion. If I recover to my peak state, perhaps I can help refine the revival pill." Your Senior Dan Xingzi? Compared to Dan Xingzi's surprise, Lu Durong was even more shocked. After all, Lu Durong was the Pavilion Master of Snow Domain Pavilion. He was rather familiar with Dan Xingzi's deeds. "I didn't expect so many people to remember me." Dan Xingzi smiled bitterly and said, "Pavilion Master Lu, don't worry. Although I can't help refine the revival pill now, I can temporarily seal Madame Lu's internal injuries and buy her a month's time." "If that's the case, thank you, Senior Dan Xingzi." Lu Durong revealed a joyful expression. Dan Xingzi was a famous alchemy master in the Great Xia Kingdom. Whether it was his personal strength or his connections, he was top-notch in the Great Xia Kingdom. With his help, there would be more opportunities. "Senior, we can't stay here for long. In my opinion, it's better to leave as soon as possible." You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.